Welcome to the February 12th meeting of the Wareham Finance Committee. A roll call, if you please.
Really? I gotta do my job now?
Yeah. Put your glasses on, find out who's here.
I'm supposed to notice. I gotta look up. See, present are Joan Fonts, Larry McDonald, Bonnie Catulli, Dominic Camerano, Tom Worthen. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it.
If you have a cellular device, please put it in the off or mute position as to not disturb the conduct of the meeting. Citizens participation. Is anybody here to talk to us? Yes, sir. If you'll step up to the mic and give us your name and talk to us.
I'll do my best. Chet Heitzma from Parkwood Beach.
Okay.
And I know you guys are facing an uphill battle this year with this budget override. I can see that from the paper, that it seems like you'd like a good bit more money than you're getting now, if I understand the prob correctly. I just had a couple of questions. I'm not sure that I'm going to get an answer here. This is just a question I've got. Isn't economic development supposed to be an economic benefit to the town? Because the only benefit that I've seen from the Wareham crossing, from the new Rosebrook, and the new Walmart going in is an increase in my taxes. And I was kind of hoping that with the economic development, they'd go down. If you look at a place like Marion or Mattapoisett, where they don't have a lot of economic development, I don't think their taxes go up at the same rate that ours are projected to. So I just wondered, I must be out of sync somehow. That's all I can figure out. The second thing is, if it's true that inflation is running about 2.5%, and our property taxes go up 2.5% each year, it would seem to make sense, just to a novice like me, that would balance out. That really, they wouldn't need a tax increase if inflation was 2.5%. So I just kind of, in the back of my mind, had those questions, because I'm already paying about $4,000 on a 1,000 square foot house. And, you look at a guy like me and you say, gee, that guy looks a little elderly. He must be on fixed income, so he must be having a pretty hard time. And I think you'd probably be right.
Anybody?
I'll answer one question. I think that when you say that, everything is going up 2.5%, I'm going to have to say that that's probably in the real world. I don't believe that that's actually a true statement. I think that that's probably on the low end. But as far as your tax increase, I don't really have an answer. But as far as the economic development, yes, that Wareham Crossing and all that has actually brought money into the town. I don't know if that's really, that you should really depend on that to lower your taxes. I don't think that, economic growth is really a thing to, lower your taxes. That's just my outcome. But I think saying that, the growth of 2.5% is really low. I don't believe that that's a true statement.
Thank you.
I'll just take a stab. I apologize.
Sorry.
I came in late because apparently something exciting is going on. It's not here, but there's no parking out there.
Oh,
so
wow.
I apologize. And I caught the tail end, so I can't speak to the beginning of it. But I will speak to, when we talk about 2.5% inflation, what Dominic was saying. We have costs in the town, our retirement benefits and our health insurance, that are growing in leaps and bounds, and projected, I believe, next year to be double digits. So that 2.5% doesn't mirror inflation. Anyone who knows what's going on with healthcare costs understands that part of it. And also some of our big expenses, gasoline, fuel costs, those also are not tied to the inflationary rises. Those go up, but when it costs you as a homeowner, when it costs us as a homeowner, it costs us as a town. And as far as the taxes going up 2.5% a year, that's a little more complex, because that's actually what the town as a whole can collect. It's not each individual property tax goes up 2.5%. It's.
No, I understand that.
You understand
Yeah, I
that
do.
concept
I
of
do.
it.
I do.
And I think I'd reassure you that all of us sitting up here, I believe, are homeowners and taxpayers. So we're feeling it too. It's a really difficult decision to be looking at these numbers and try to make decisions off of them. So don't think that we take it lightly. But I think, in fact, when we look at some of these numbers, we've been making cuts and cuts and cuts that aren't necessarily in the best interest of the town.
That
because
does seem like another sad thing, isn't it? In
It
other
really
words,
is. It
we're
last-
paying more money and actually getting less service.
Services.
Now-
And that's something that we've looked
Yep,
at.
yep.
Last year, when we have every department head come before us, come and sit and talk to us about their department budgets. And last year, when they came, the first thing that Mr. Sullivan had asked them all to do was project how they could make more income for their department. So that's something that has been being worked on. There was an adjustment in fees. I'm going to say yes, it was an increase in fees, but it was to bring it in line with what other towns are charging for fees. We're
Yes,
looking
that makes sense.
for long-term consolidation, regionalization. You'll hear these words over and over again, but unfortunately with municipal government, nothing happens quickly. So it's in the process. Is it going to save us for this year? No.
Well, am I correct in thinking that I may be off on that 2.5%, but that's supposed to be a national number that they, if you ask somebody how much is inflation, well, 2.5. Now, I'm not arguing that that's necessarily equal to your costs. However, I don't know that my fuel went up 2.5%. Fuel seems to have gone up, spiked, and now it's fairly even. So I'm not sure of that one. The question that I have is, and it's not up for you people to, this is by no means blame. I'm just coming from the outside and discussing things here. That if you do have pensions, which you're certainly entitled to, but if inflation is 2.5%, then why should the pension have to go up more than 2.5%? So when you tell me that the pensions are going way up, I would ask you in return, well, isn't that, and I'm by no means blaming you, isn't that a negotiating thing where you say to whoever it is that are getting these pensions, well, look, guys, this is what we can afford, and we just can't afford that. And with health care, do we have a hope that this Obama, whatever this is going to be, because that doesn't seem to be reasonable to me either. I don't understand in the general course of the whole world why health care has to be more than the inflation rate, although I do feel it for the town. I would ask you in return, well, can't you say to your employees, look, guys, we're going to give you 2.5% towards your health care. You do what you want with it, and, we wish you the best of luck. I'm not saying that you can, but, boy, from my perspective, that would be great.
I'm, my turn.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Economic development is a slow process. A good example of that is the hotel they're putting in. I mean, obviously, we're going to get a hotel in here. People are telling you you're not going to get any money from that. That's not true. The land it was built on was one-time agricultural land, which was taxed at a lower rate. Now that it's become commercial land, it'll be taxed at a higher rate. So we will receive more income from that. The hotel's not buying the land, they're leasing the land, so the owner of the land will give us more. We'll also receive more money through the hotel motel tax and also mills tax. So we'll see some increase, but when you're talking about an $8.9 million built-in deficit over 5 years, the $230,000 you gain from that is not enough. We need more economic development, but I don't think that we could put enough economic development in this town to overcome some issues. Number one, employee benefits have gone up 21.8%. But if you look at that number on the whole, you say, wow, that's a lot of money. That's since 2013 into 2015, it's gone up 21.8%. However, in this process, and I don't know if we can openly talk about it, I think we can, it was negotiated with the employees to take a larger portion of that number. So therefore, over a period of the next 5 years, we'll save $5 million. So you can imagine how much it would have gone up otherwise. Our debt line, because we haven't in the past or put very little money into the infrastructure of this town. You see our buildings, and I'm aware, that they're not in the best of shape. Because we haven't put any money in, we're going to have to spend more money to fix that. we can't right now because we don't have any money in the budget. So the portion that has gone up the least in this town is the general government and school combined. Our employees, I believe they've received zeros or very low increases, and so they're actually part of that too. But I understand about the healthcare because I see it in the real world out there where they're saying, you know what, we can't afford healthcare anymore, so we're going to give you an individual plan, and your wife and children need to go out to the Health Connector and get their own plan. I see that all the time, and it happens. But I'm not so sure at this point, because we have some of the issues we have in town, that's going to get us the employees we need in this town. If you and I were going out for a job and we went to two places and one's offering us health care and the other one's saying you're going to have to get it off Health Connector, you know, you're
Yeah.
going to go to the one that offers that.
You know, I've heard that, and it certainly makes a great deal of sense. And I'm sure that what I'm looking at is a different picture than you're looking at. But if the unemployment rate is so high,
Yes.
why is it so difficult to get employees if you lower them, if you ask them to take
I
less
wish I
money?
could answer that question.
Okay, I understand.
But around in
And I
Wareham,
do
if you
thank you
look,
for your
there's
time.
not as many jobs in Wareham. I don't see a lot of jobs, and the ones that aren't going to pay the kind of money that people are looking for. We're caught in a very interesting vacuum here. But as far as the override, I don't think, if you look around this board, there's nobody on this board that would support an override unless there's a plan, a 5-year plan that says this is what's going to happen, and after 5 years, we'll be able to repair and get going in the right direction. Because the more people we have, you know, supporting just an override for the sake of an override is a mistake. You need good, strong fiscal management, which we will, as a committee, I think we agree that there has to be some cuts along with that. But we just have to, we're not trying to, I know people are on fixed incomes, and there has been discussion about ways to mitigate some of the costs to the people that are on fixed income. We're really not at that point yet, but it's not just cut and dry. We're going to put this large number, which I don't know. I've heard everything from for $8.9 million override to $3. Nothing's been decided, and nobody's even talked $8.9 million. Just so you know, but. No, I thank you for coming to the committee and talking to us.
I thank you for your
And
answers.
we'll have openings in June on the committee.
Thank you very
So if
much.
you're-
I appreciate
If you feel like,
Yeah,
if you
right.
feel like
Okay.
you'll
You
learn a
can do
lot
it
about
better.
this.
Get in here, right?
So just think about putting in your application through the town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Is there anybody else? All right, come on up and introduce yourself.
Forgive me, I'm not good at speaking. And this
Most
is
of
my
us
first
aren't
time.
either, so.
Is this on? My name's Mark Holbert, and I'm a concerned parent. That's, I guess, my only thing in the town here. With the recent news about the resource officer being cut in the schools due to overtime that may have been spent over the past year, what my problem that I see with that is that why are we cutting a position to satisfy what one would call maybe why did we use so much overtime over the past few the past year? Was there any kind of a responsibility there to manage those funds properly so that we don't lose a
Yeah, I got the time. First off, we can't go backwards and fix problems like that. The one thing, and if you're going to say nobody was watching the boat, we are trying to watch the boat. But I don't know why he was cut. I know that there was a mandate or a directive that came from DOR that asked to cut money, and this is one of the things they do. And I understand about the school resource officer. Trust me, I have a daughter in middle school too, just like everybody else. But the question I always ask is, if we're not going to cut him, where do you want it to come from? Because what we have to do is we have to make, not us, but the town administrator and the school superintendent and the board of selectmen, they have to make a decision of where that money comes from. And thankfully, parents are not liking this, well, not thankfully, but
No.
parents are not liking this one, so they're standing up and speaking. So maybe by next year, they will have worked something out for one there. But what always has concerned me more than the school resource officer was the fact that we've cut over 15 teachers out of our school system.
And I think more are coming.
Yeah, and more coming, and nobody's upset about that, or people are upset, but they're not speaking out. And to me, that's as big an issue as the school resource officer, because like I said, I have a daughter there. Have you read through the middle school student handbook?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
Not
Well, if you
all
have,
of it, but I understand.
you need to
yeah.
go into the discipline section.
Yeah.
And to me, that seems a little light in the discipline section. I heard the story about some child getting punched in the face.
Yes.
I don't know that the school resource officer would have stopped that unless he was in the classroom, but that child, what? Do what? I don't know that he would have stopped that, and maybe he would have, but at the same time, we need to also look to our administrators at the school to put a better discipline place in. Now, doesn't answer your question about the school resource
No.
officer.
I didn't think I was going to get it.
But the answer, I'll tell you what
Yeah.
my answer is, if the parents go to the school committee, this is two sides of the equation, the town side, the general government and the school, and they are working on a budget now. They're working on the issues now. If the parents, like you, and I'm sure there's 1,000 more over there,
My wife
are
is over
going to
there.
talk to them, then yeah, maybe something happens out of that because the people talk to them. That's all we're really trying to do. If you
Sure.
tell us what you want, we'll tell you what we can give you, and you tell us where you're going to get the other money from.
Well, I don't know
math.
where I can get money from. That's not where, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think I can tell you, take the money from here. I mean, I may tell you something, but it might not make sense to you.
Yeah, I know.
But what is an illegal deficit?
Pardon me?
What is an illegal, we seem to be in an elite, we were told that one of the reasons is an illegal deficit.
Who told you that?
I got an email.
Any
But-
deficit is illegal,
okay,
yeah.
But you used a big word and you made it sound bad. We're
Well,
not,
yeah, it makes it sound like it's
It's-
illegal.
Municipal government has to have a balanced budget.
we have to have a
Yeah.
balanced budget. That's the way it works.
We don't
And-
have a credit card or a home equity loan
Right.
backing us up.
Yeah.
We've got to make those numbers work. So when we estimate a budget, when we work on it this year coming forward, we have to figure out best
Right.
revenue, best guess revenues, and what it's going to cost us to run the town. What happened this year is the Department of Revenue said, yeah, we think maybe your revenue estimate might have been high. We don't really have faith in your budget. Cut another 500,000. This coming on top of the 849,000 we'd already cut. So halfway through the year, the town administrator had to go back and make cuts. I just want to take a quick minute to address generally why we have so much overtime on the police department. And it's not because these guys want to go out and make a lot of money. We have lost, and I don't have the numbers, but we are seriously understaffed on our police department. For the safety of the town, we need to run however many people it is per, 6 per shift.
I think it is 6.
And I think it's 6 per shift that we have to run. When you take into account people who are sick,
Yeah, there's been several,
there've been several long-term
and
sicknesses,
sudden retirements as well.
several sudden unexpected retirements, I should say.
Yes.
And that happens in January because of their scheduling time for retirement, but that's right in the middle of the year for us. So we've already budgeted the salary, we have to pay out the retirement, and now we don't have a warm body to put on that shift. So everybody is really working a lot of overtime because we don't even have the money to put new police into the academy now that we finally have the opportunity to alleviate some of this problem. One of the issues when you talk about business is I know all the businesses are trying to run lean because you don't want to have extra staff because then you've got to pay the benefits. There are certain times that you actually have to suck it up and take on the staff and pay the benefits, and I think this is one of those departments that critically needs it. We don't have it, so we're running overtime, and I think it just may be also a factor that it's stretched very thin, and as a fully qualified police officer that was a dedicated resource at the school, and whether it was or is not needed, he's also needed at the town. So this is how we're going to try it now, or not our decision to do that, but trying to give you some
But what you're-
rationale behind the
But what you're
decision.
doing is what the school superintendent, the school committee, the boards, that's what they need to hear, because it tells us where the focus is, and so they can work within whatever realm they need to, because I think in the paper it said Chief Walsh is working with the school staff and plans to have officers conducting periodic walkthroughs. So I think they're trying to figure out ways to do it.
Yeah.
So it's good that parents come forward. That's, like I said, I think I said it the other day, when people get together and they have a common cause, they can become powerful that way, so.
I'm trying. And again, I'm new to all the process of everything here. And I do agree with you that a teacher it is a little more important than a security, a resource
Well, I didn't say she was a
officer.
little more important. I just think that education is important.
Yeah, exactly, and we're not sure where those cuts are coming from yet.
Yeah.
We heard they are coming, so that message isn't out there yet, and believe me, it's coming. I'm sure some of the parents are gonna be concerned with where those cuts are gonna be. But just my overall concern was that if he was in place and we was budgeted for the year, and then all of a sudden we get overtime, and now he's not there, and wherever he's going back onto the force, so you're gonna be pulling, like you said, periodical walkthroughs maybe,
Well, they're talking.
stuff like that, but you're pulling that person off the street to do that, so, but I know you're trying to help out, I mean,
Yeah.
and I appreciate everything that you're doing, but.
What we have to do, not we, but as a
Yeah.
town, we have to balance, what we can afford with the needs. And like I said, when parents come forward, they identify the needs sometimes, so we have to go back and think about it. But
Yeah.
I think the decision's going to come from the school committee, the superintendent, the town administrator, and the board of selectmen. We're more of a advisory committee to town meeting. And
Exactly.
yes, did anybody else want to? Jeff?
I just-
Nope, Bonnie?
I just want to make a comment. These things are really important. We're very happy to see you come here and voice your opinion. And that is what more people need to do, okay? Your Board of Selectmen, your FinCom, your town administrator, they need to know where the priorities are. And this message that we're trying to send out has to do with this. What's your phrase? Revenue adjustment? Thank you. Our revenue adjustment message is that we want to know where your priorities are. And the fact is, you may have to pay for them to get them. That's the point, is that these things that we feel we really, really do need are things we're going to have to pay for, one way or the other. And if that's a high priority for you and your family and your community, that's where you need to step up and say, yeah, this is a high priority for me, and it's what I want for my town. These police officers, they don't want to have to leave there. They knew what they were doing and that it was a good thing. But this has been going on for a couple of years of them being overstressed and undermanned. And we've just been making do, unfortunately. That overtime issue has been there for a long time. It's just added up, and with the DOR mandate, we didn't have much choice. That was his choice of what he thought he could do. So, but coming here and voicing your opinion in your peers and your neighbors and everything else, you need to talk about it and discuss it and come to town meeting and make a decision.
Powerful voice.
I agree.
Yes, anybody else?
Well, I don't have too much to add, except for the point that you're here tonight is that you're concerned about the resource officer, and that's the point that I take. The overtime, I think it's already been explained that it's almost built in that they have to have a certain amount of shift coverage, and when there's not enough officers to do it, then they have to pull in the overtime. And it's we're contractually obligated to have so many men on per shift. And between being in court, vacation, I asked the chief while he was here, just in vacations and automatic days off, it's almost that every shift is gonna be short 3 people.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's almost gonna fill 3 slots all the time anyway, and then that brings you right down to the 6, so. Then if someone's sick, then automatically it's overtime, so. But anyway, I just wanted
No, I
to,
appreciate it.
the point though, that the resource officer is important to you is what we need to take.
Yeah, as well as every other cut that's coming is gonna be important to a parent. That just happens to be the one that just happened this week, so, I appreciate your time.
And also, we will have some openings on the FinCom in June, so we're looking to fill the seats.
Keep trying, Larry, keep trying.
I'll think
So
about it.
please put in an application if you're interested.
Excellent.
Thank you
again.
for your time. Anyone else? Nobody else? Okay. Community Preservation Committee, proposed town meeting articles. You're up. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to say I was here for the same reason. Brenda Ireland, and I'm from White Island Pond area.
Okay.
And I'm here for the same reason, the security of the schools. How many other, I don't know if there's a lot of towns that don't have school resource officers. Is this
I don't.
common? You know, how is the safety gonna, my son's in the middle school. And I know the chief has a son in the middle school, that, yeah, there's many,
My daughter.
yeah, and I was just really nervous about, the safety of the, I think that when they know that, there's somebody that he really knew the kids and, individually, Baptiste, and I was just really disappointed that, yet now I understand more, so I was glad I came. Because I understand that the numbers need at least so many per shift at the, for the whole town overall. But
I
if
certainly
can-
wouldn't want to be either one of the town administrator, superintendent making decisions, because
Yeah.
you get this much money and you
Yeah.
have to make decisions, and
Yeah.
sometimes, but again,
Yeah.
you guys coming forward
Yeah,
helps
I was-
them to make a decision,
Yeah.
and,
And if there's some way that something can be figured out and they get more
Mhm.
police officers for the overall town, and then maybe he can be reinstated as the school resource officer, then that would be great.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
historically happened before, and I actually think
Yep.
the resource officer is a relatively new,
Is it?
yeah, but it's been in a few years. I have to remember how old I
Used
am.
to be
So you-
truancy officer back.
Well, there was
Yeah.
another lady that was another police officer that was the school resource officer before Carl Baptiste.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then they used to, before, they used to travel around during certain times of the day. They weren't actually at the school as much,
Yeah.
but they were available to call in the
Yeah.
event that they needed. But then things changed and it became a necessity. I'd like to get to a point where it was unnecessary, but
Yeah.
it's not right at the moment.
Well, I mean, over the whole country, the whole world, you're just seeing more school, violence and bullying, and, my son's been on both sides, and, Angel, yet he understands that, Baptiste knows these kids really well, so it was just sad to see it happen, but, okay, I just wanted to.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comment.
Next up is the CPC folks. That would be y'all, as they say in the South.
I'm gonna move these.
Oh, here, I'll bring them up here.
Right over here, baby. Go right over here.
Put 'em over there. I'm just 2 donut holes short of a diabetic coma right now, so. We're not going to vote on the articles tonight. What we wanted to do is get a little understanding of the articles so that,
McDonald needs one. He said he needs 2 more.
I need 2 more for a diabetic coma, is what I
Oh,
said.
all right.
So we'd like just to get a better understanding and ask some of our questions and get them out of the way, because once again,
Jeff hasn't had a
I think
chance
was questions last night, and I really don't know how it turned out, because I won't
I don't
admit in
think Jeff
public
has
that I
had a
don't
chance.
watch much of those meetings, but I sometimes don't. So I'll turn it over to you. You got copies for it? Oh, like I ever look at my.
Nothing right now.
You just said no, now you said yes.
No, I don't have the budget sheet. I have everything else. I got everything here. I made packets for everyone.
You did?
You should, all-
Oh,
don't,
Packages for us.
yeah, don't tell me you don't have them.
no, they do.
Yeah, okay.
I can do 'em. Okay. I don't mind.
Oh, send him that one.
Okay, guys, everybody pay attention.
Yes, sir. You gave us food and then you asked us to pay attention.
Well, the first thing I want to do is apologize for all the emails I sent out. Mr. Leggett, here beside me is one of our committee members, and Shirley Worthen as well. I'm Angela Dunham. So first thing I'm going to do is apologize for all the crazy emails that went out. I sent out my drafts. I should not have done that. I apologize. In any case, whatever you saw that came your way at the end of my crazy barrage, Mr. Sullivan has decided to call me the spammer, the serial spammer, because I kept sending them out. But anyway,
I only
the
got one. I
copies-
didn't get spammed.
Angie, you're doing fine.
but you have your packets.
I
You've
got my packet. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Do you want me to give general information before we begin, or shall we start with the article? I was going to give you general.
Again, we're not going to vote on this tonight. We just want to try to get some questions out of the way so that when we do vote on them.
Do you want budget info? Do you want return from the state info? Do you want?
Yeah, those are the housekeeping ones anyway, so yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, what I can tell you right now is that on the state CPA Coalition Fund site, Wareham has been given will be given $592,529. Round one, because we are a 3% community, we get 3 pulls from the pot of monies. And so round one, and because we are at 3%, we'll get 3 different shots at the pool. Round one gave us $309,449. Round two gave us an additional $48,971. Round three gave us $30,977, for a total of $389,397. We this year, because the state was granted $25 million, if you'll remember, we came in at a final percentage reimbursement from the state at 65.72%, almost 66%. And this is the best, yes, this is the best we've had in years, as you all know. We started out at 100% reimbursement, and as the real estate market fell apart because of the lack of turnover of registry deed transactions, we went downhill for a while there. But we are back up to 65.72%, and I'm very pleased to tell you that news. The other piece of news that I was going to tell you is that the FY15 estimated revenues, the figure given to me by our very capable treasurer, $812,000 for FY15 estimated revenues.
Is that a combination, is that a combination of the state's funds as well as our town contribution?
Yes.
It looks to me, yes, it looks to
Okay.
me, the two figures together.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If you want to speak to, do you want to speak to the regular town meeting articles separate from the special meeting, or just go down in order of the packet?
If you just inform us which is which.
I will.
And just go down through the packet and we'll
Okay.
go from there.
I numbered the pages up in the corner, on the top right-hand corner, so page 1. If you'll notice on the warrant article line, I have indicated whether or not they are regular or special town meeting. So if you'd look, okay. So the first one is regular town meeting, housekeeping set-asides and estimated FY15 annual revenue. Shall I read it? It's for the benefit of the public listening, or just
Do you guys want her to read it or just give us general terms? Okay.
the general, okay.
You're going to have to read it at town meeting anyway, so.
Oh, I thought FinCom was going to.
We probably will, but
I was going to say, we can negotiate this, but because I thought you folks were going
Mrs. Cattouli will probably be reading this, so.
Yeah, we'll bring you donuts if you read it. How's that?
You don't have enough donuts.
You have to bring me 2, because I can't get unbalanced.
We can do that. Okay, so let's see, $40,600 to meet administrative expenses and all other necessary and proper expenses for a CPC for the fiscal year 2015. $81,200 for open space reserves, $81,200 to historic preservation reserves, $81,200 to affordable housing reserves. And so if you look down at the explanation, it says that this is a housekeeping article. These amounts are going into, as I said, open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing. Additionally, the committee is allowed 5% of the revenues for administrative costs, and then they are the 10%, 10%, 10% set-asides for historic preservation, open space, and affordable housing. The CPC vote on this was 5-0-0.
Just for clarification purposes for the new people, these are the minimums that need to get funded into these line items, and the rest of the money goes into unallocated funds.
Yes.
So as long as we put our minimum requirements in there, then the rest of it
Goes into unallocated.
goes into unallocated, and we can decide what to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
So basically, then, we should have 5 accounts then, so to speak. We should have a balance in the open space,
a balance in historical, a balance in affordable housing, our administrative, and then we have the.
Unallocated.
Okay, and now those balances, do we get a run on those balances? We do.
Yeah, we do,
Um,
normally.
Sandy, we're here.
Yeah, I'm going to ask your indulgence if I could please forward them to you via
Email it to me and I'll pass it out to the committee.
I wasn't prepared with those numbers tonight because I thought we were just going to discuss the articles.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
But I will get them
that's
to you.
fine. I was looking for just for
A
an
sheet.
idea of what you had.
Yeah, I'll get that to you all. Article 2, did you want?
Okay,
Any questions on Article 1? Yes.
the $40,000,
Mhm.
what did you spend this year, or what are you spending this year?
Again, if I could, email you the figures and it'll have the breakdown for you. I don't have those figures in front of me,
Just because you get $40,000 doesn't mean you have to spend all
and we
that.
don't.
Okay.
We don't. As a matter of fact, whatever the actual cost of the projects that go out, whatever is the balance, comes back to us. It goes back into the pot. It doesn't, disappear into thin air. It does come back and stays.
Yeah, on administrative, you're allowed to spend 5%. You don't have
Yes,
to
it doesn't
spend
mean we do.
5%.
I know, yeah.
No.
Allowed.
CPC is
So
well
we spend
aware that we
all
don't
the
have a
time.
bottomless pit and an open check, blank check. We are very careful with the taxpayers' money.
Oh, first I need to ask the committee, but is the committee okay with the Selectman Slaving asking a question?
It's not a question.
Oh, a statement.
It's information. My wife, as everybody knows, has had complete knee replacement surgery, so she's not here tonight. But we happened to be discussing this particular issue last night. I was curious. And they spent $8,700 in admin expenses so far.
Okay.
To repeat that, there was $8,700 on administrative expenses for this current year.
And those cover a variety of things.
Right, and that's for all the different projects.
I'm trying to think what was the one, but
Yeah,
it
I-
wasn't just-
Legal fees and
Paper.
things.
Advertising,
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
bidding and
Yeah,
things like
and
that.
even small repair, small
That's actually a
requests.
small
Yeah.
number.
Typically, at town meeting, you provide us a sheet that's got
Yes.
the the accounting on it, and or is
Before
it
we vote
before?
on the articles, we
Right,
just
when
need to
we
confirm that
vote
the
on the
money is
articles,
available.
yeah.
and- yeah.
If you'll
Okay.
forward that on, I'll forward it
I
on to the
will.
committee. We'll talk about you when you're not here, and then we'll vote.
You'll have those breakdown sheets. So I think the past 4 town meetings, with permission of our moderator, the information has gone out to the public as handouts. So the breakdown of all of the past CPA projects that we have approved and have gone forward through town meeting, the breakdown is there for people. And again, the budget sheet, again, is a handout there at town meeting for people to see, and it goes into the town report at the end. I printed out. So it is definitely public information. As a matter of fact, I had permission to put the leftover handouts by the town clerk's desk outside her office for people going to town hall so they could pick it up. The information is there.
Any more questions? Article 2?
Thank you. The second article is, sorry, here we go. Regular town meeting. This is the annual debt payment on Bryant Farm and Tremont Nail. What does it say? Appropriating from community fund, estimated annual revenue or any other monies available in the community preservation fund under open space, the sum of $6,822 for payment for debt service on the property known as Bryant Farm, and further to appropriate under historic preservation the sum of $95,727 for payment for debt service on the property known as Tremont Nail, both voted for purchase by town meeting in April of 2004. This is a housekeeping article, of course, the debt service that we pay out. To tell you that we still owe outstanding on Tremont Nail $628,000. And if it is paid off, as Mr. Sullivan had mentioned at one of the previous meetings, if it's paid off earlier, and I believe there isn't a penalty on early payment on that, we would save $67,630 is the amount I have here, if the debt is paid early.
We would have to vote that for either this town meeting or the fall to be able to do that. Otherwise, we will miss the issue to
Is there enough money in there to do that?
Yes.
We have a healthy CPA budget.
Okay. Is there a chance of an article getting on, no, not spring?
For fall,
That'd be fall? Okay.
What was the savings again?
the savings would be $67,630 is what I have.
Or we've got another 6 years of payout at 98, is that it? 95?
95.
I don't know what the payout date is.
If we have a special, the dates for the special are pushed back a little further, so we could bring it before the CPC, but first before the Selectmen, FinCom vote to move it to the CPC and have them vote it for the spring special town meeting.
Question?
Yes.
Do you have any type of breakdown like you just gave us on trim up for Bryant Farm?
I do not. Sorry.
That's okay.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Wow, that was pretty quick. No, if we can get it on the meeting and the money's there, that might be something to consider.
Okay. I'll bring it forward, see what we can do about that. Wareham Little League Complex is Article 3 in your packet. It is for special town meeting. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from Community Preservation unallocated fund or any other monies available in CPC fund, the sum of $29,000 for Wareham Little League Field Complex restoration. The Wareham Little League Complex is located on Charge Pond Road. They are the owners of the property. As we all know, you have to be the owner of the property to bring forward the application. It's owned by the Wareham Little League. There's broken glass coming up through the dirt across the entire complex. Glass, this is the intention, the glass will be removed and aluminum mesh will be placed over that area, covered by clean fill where the kids play. In addition, the netting and the batting cages will be replaced and one baseball field will be renovated. Labor will be done by the Little League organization and parent volunteers. Let me see if I have any more information here that I wrote down during the meeting. I'm going to make a mess of his name. I'm going to say Mr. DeCanto because I can't, he goes by Q. Came and put out, yeah, I have, thank you. He is asking for $26,000 and the total cost of the project would be $32,000. He tells us the scoreboards don't work. The broken glass across the complex obviously is a tremendous concern. Yeah. So, and he said oh, I said that already. One of the baseball fields will be renovated.
The scoreboards are being
yeah.
donated by
Who? Should we? I'm
Uh,
sorry.
local businesses are going to donate the scoreboards.
Thank you.
Please talk
I'm
into the
sorry.
microphone
When you
there.
speak.
The scoreboards for the Little League games will be donated by 2 local sponsors, i.e. businesses. Saves cost there.
A little more background, there are 227 kids enrolled. There are 6 fields total, 4 regular and 2 Little League, for the little kids. The maintenance schedule, they're looking for seating yearly. It's already in their budget. Let's see, April 27th they open. They have some programs for girls in the softball program. And I think that's all I have from his interview.
Questions? Jeff, did you want to, Jeff had.
Well, this wouldn't necessarily be tackled before they open for this season, right?
No, but if we put it into special town meeting, the money will be available for them to start the process right away.
And one of the prohibitions is on maintenance. So are they
Right.
going to take care of it from then on, or?
The maintenance will be up to them, yes, because CPA does not allow for maintenance.
Right, but also, as things run down, there needs to be some prevention of having things run down so that we're not necessarily doing wholesale renovations in lieu of maintenance.
You're right. The only thing I have here from his interview is that they have a maintenance schedule set up. And that's all I have from that discussion with Mr. DeCanto.
And would they, was there anything on, you mentioned one field, would they be coming back for more on the others? So,
I can't say.
okay. I didn't know
We
if they
didn't
mentioned,
discuss
I didn't know
any
if they
further.
mentioned that, I don't know.
Jeff, one of the fields is not usable, and that's the field they want to recover. The other ones are,
All right.
it,
We have a breakdown of the lists of items that they're requesting too, if anyone is interested.
I just want a clarification on the number, because you said, you were reading there and you said 26,000, but this
Is what they
says
were asking.
29,000.
The total cost he estimates at 32,000. The other monies would be because of the volunteer
Labor, right?
labor and sponsors and donors. I believe he has.
I get that, but when you said your notes, you said 26, but your printout here says 29.
Oh.
That's what I need to
Okay.
know.
You
Thank
know
you.
what?
Yeah.
I apologize. It's 29,000 that,
Okay.
because what we do, when we vote as CPA members, we put in a contingency of 10% onto it. And in the discussion that day, we looked at some of the things that he was requesting and talking about, and that's why the number changed.
Okay, so it is 29.
Yes, it is
Thank you.
29. Thank you for pointing that out.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
Article 4.
4, Article 4, as you can see, is regular town meeting, the top line, onset bathhouse engineering study. CPC vote was 500. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from community preservation unallocated funds in the community preservation fund under the category of recreation and historic preservation both, the sum of $11,000 for an onset bathhouse engineering study. The goal of this project is to create and establish various options by conducting an engineering survey for the use of the onset bathhouse. The onset bathhouse is located on Onset Beach, has been used as a first aid station, rental property, food concession, and recreational storage. The engineering plans would be in compliance with flood zone regulations. So it's just a basic survey for what we can use the building for down the road, what can be done.
Questions? Marilyn? I'm sorry, Mrs. Donahue.
Thank you. There's been quite a bit of concern. The town spends a lot of money on surveys, studies, and plans, and I understand that, and I understand because we are tied by all kinds of regulatory agencies that you need to make sure everything is taken care of. And you may not be able to answer this, but this is not something that we can do in-house. We don't have the wherewithal, the expertise within the town to do it. We have to outsource it. Is that what I understand?
Looking at the application. What I have here the only reference I have here is under timeline. As soon as funding is approved and the agreement is made with the assistance of town purchasing administrator, the contract will be signed and work will commence. I don't have any mention of specific contractors.
I think the answer is lacking a town planner, lacking a town engineer, and
It would be
lacking additional
outsourced?
personnel, we don't have the ability to do it in-house.
Right.
Whereas if we were a community that had those resources available, as we did years ago, we could have done it in-house, but we have to outsource because we've lost that ability. I'm answering my own question, but I just wanted to
Well,
make sure we were
thank
all on
you.
the same page with that.
Yep, thanks.
Mr. Worthing?
For all of these things, if for the benefit of the town meeting, I think it would help if you had pictures or a map so that people could see, this is what the Little League fields look like. Here's some examples of glass, or we've had so many injuries, or whatever. Because we're taking somebody's word for it that what's on paper is really what is the real world, and if they saw pictures of it, would be a better argument. And also for the bathhouse, there are a lot of people who don't even know that that bathhouse exists or what it even looks like. So I think that would be darn helpful to,
It's an excellent
to sell the
suggestion.
day.
We have in the past suggested and supported the proponents to get up and speak to their own articles, their own applications, rather than CPC, because these are not CPC projects that we've brought forward. These are applications that we have reviewed and brought forward because they meet the criteria for CPA law. That being said, I will absolutely reach out to the people who have submitted these applications and ask them to please have those ready for Mr. Underhill to present, because that's absolutely what they need to do. The proponents need to speak to the basic issues that you're questioning tonight.
It took me a couple years to get actually to understand that process, because when I first started, I thought you were to blame or whatever. It was your articles. And then you kindly explained to me that you're a conduit.
Yes.
And if they meet the criteria, then they can apply. It doesn't mean you support or don't support it. They meet the criteria.
That's
So
right.
therefore, so yes, you explained it to
Yeah.
me, and I thank you, because I think it's important for everyone else to know too that, this is not CPC's articles. This
No.
is article for CPC money, or CPA money through CPC.
Right,
That's-
people, you're right. As long as the
Yes.
owner brings forth the application, then we review it to make sure that it follows CPC guidelines and laws, and we seek legal counsel and so on, which we'll get to a few of those down the road here. And then we bring it forward. If I personally support it, of course, I'm going to vote in favor of it, but these are not Angela's projects. These are projects that are brought forward by these applicants. The proponents will speak at town meeting. I think the reason that people in the past thought that they were our projects was because CPC members themselves were presenting them at town meeting. And so it gave, I think, the illusion that they were our personal projects that we were bringing out. But that's not the case.
Who's the owner of that building? Is that a town-owned building?
No.
It is a town-owned building?
Yes, so this is coming
Municipal
from.
maintenance.
Yes, municipal maintenance is bringing this forward. Thank
A
you,
lot of
Shirley.
work to do.
Yep.
I'm good.
The next, can we go on to the?
Sure.
next- Yeah, okay. The next one is the Old Town Offices Preservation Project. I'm looking at Mr. Worthen and I'm smiling. In any case, the CPC
I
vote
need
on
preservation, is that what you're saying?
Old Town Offices,
Some projects can't be taken on, so.
better known as WCTV. I don't know that there's anyone in town that isn't aware that the building is stopped in mid-project. And we are all concerned about getting that taken care of course. CPC votes 5-0-0. This is brought forth by municipal maintenance as well on behalf of the town, to see if the town will vote to appropriate out of CPA funds, unallocated fund, or any other monies available in community preservation. They want $25,000 to complete the preservation of the Old Town offices, or to act in any manner relative thereto. The goal of this project is to restore and preserve the offices located at the Old Town offices. People call it Old Town Hall, but it's actually Old Town offices, also known as Old Town Hall. The project will address unforeseen wall rot of sheathing and structural damages due to insect infestation, as well as the restoration of the bulkhead. The painting project started. The contractor found rot due to water damage and insect damage that and we are all aware when we start doing construction projects on an older building, many times you take those top boards off or start scraping and you find surprises that water rot has done more damage than you imagined. So that's what happened here. The painting stopped. So that being said, this is now a separate piece asking for those rotted areas to be addressed, and then the painting will resume. We are all disappointed that this came to a halt when we had hoped that it would be over and done with, but there it is.
You might want to address, was the original project a CPC project as well under historical? The original one with the painting?
Under historical
And what was
preservation.
the amount of the original project?
Oh,
Because I remember us discussing it quite a bit.
30,
yes, it was around
36,
35, somewhere in there,
35,
36?
36,000.
Yeah,
Okay. So it is halted, but that, once the the issues are fixed, they can go back and whatever's money's left on the original project will go towards that. Is that correct?
Yes, it all comes back, even this amount. Whatever is not used will come back into the fund.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Camerona.
Was there a survey before the painting? Was there a? No, not a survey. Yeah, when it was originally, the painting job. Was there any, was it looked at before, who would put out the bid and all that?
When it went out to bid, the only thing I can tell you is from my own personal viewpoint. When it went out to bid, there was a date that was set, and Mr. Edwards from the Municipal Maintenance Department went to the building to wait for the folks who had bid on the project to come and to inspect the property. And for whatever reasons, the bidders did not appear that morning. It does not mean they didn't come at another time. They simply did not come, they simply did not come at that specified hour. So I can't answer that question as to when they came and how long they took to inspect it. I'm sorry.
What I'm kind of getting at is that, was there any responsibility that, they bid on this project? And, sometimes when you bid on a job, if you made a mistake and you gave an estimate to do something, your responsibility. It seems like, somebody dropped the ball along the way, it appears, that why this project was stopped. The money was bid to do a job, and then all of a sudden they say they can't do the job for X, Y, and Z. Why? Who's responsible for that why question?
Yeah, I can't answer you, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, Derek?
Mr. Sullivan's going to come up here and answer the question.
Thank you, Derek.
Big bad Dom picking
I gotta figure out this here.
No, there was an inspection of it, and they did have a contingency. I don't know, I thought it was approximately $8,000 for any of the rot. When they went in there and they started trimming back and bringing out the boards that they were going to replace, the rot was extensive, much more. It would have been beyond the scope of the project by far. Also, as such, these persons are going to have to rebid if they want to do the work on fixing it. That we still have them for the painting of it, but because it's so far outside the cost of what the original painting project is, we're going to have to go through the 30B process again. So this one, it couldn't have been that we said you're going to replace every board that's rotted and anything like that. It would have been way outside the scope of what we were bidding out.
So then, the original fee, the 30,000 or whatever number it was not paid to these people. It was stopped at a certain amount of money, or
Yeah, we still have those funds, and those will be paid out after the painting is finished. But in between that, we'll have to bid out the work for the repairs. And once the repairs are done, the painting will commence. They've reached out to us to extend give them a letter so that they can extend the performance bond on it as well. So.
Okay, so they haven't been paid,
No.
and they will be once they finish their job, but we're gonna do this work before and then let them finish after.
Yes.
Now, you said that there was like $8,000 or whatever number it is, that they were gonna do some repair. Is that gonna be taking off of their contract, and this new repair is gonna take care of all of it, and then their fee will be lessened just to paint it? Am I
Yeah, it would
correct
be,
in saying that?
if they don't they're not the ones doing the repair work, they're not gonna get paid for it.
But,
so.
in their original contract, there was some monies for repairs, correct?
Yeah, it would have been
That will be taken off the project?
That would have been a contingency if they went beyond the scope of the cost and replace those, and they're not going to do that.
Okay, maybe I said it wrong.
So there's not, if I can phrase it wasn't 30,000 and 8,000 of it was repairs.
Okay.
There was 30,000, then there was also a contingency on there for an extra amount to be done. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, so the 8,000 could be just something I'm taking off of memory. But they would not be paid for that work that they're not going to do. So if they're not replacing the boards on there, they're not doing that work, that's not something they would get paid for.
That's
They
excellent.
haven't skipped to the warm weather either with our money.
That's
so.
okay. No, you answered my question. Thank you, Derek.
All right.
Mrs. Donahue?
And please, Derek, don't leave, because I think you may also have to answer this one. I just want to make it clear, because I think we heard this when the original proposal came forward. In a better world, we would have funds available in the town to do that maintenance, so we wouldn't have to go through CPC money, which is what's taking us so long. In other words, if we had $25,000 available to do those repairs, we could have just done them and the work could have continued on.
Correct. What we would have done at that point is actually, we would have done the work if we had the staff to do it, or we would have hired out if we had the budget, and then we could have sought to recoup the funds from the CPC as well if there was going to be an issue with the budget. But we didn't have that amount to pay out, so the budget couldn't take that risk.
So,
Anyone else? Carry on. Oh, yes, do you have something else to add?
I do. I want to add that the Wareham Historic District Commission met, and they approved the order of conditions, which means that they have no objection to the work. The Historic District, there are three areas. There's the area of Parker Mills,
Right.
the area of Central Park, and then the Narrows District, and that runs down the commercial district downtown Wareham. And this building is in the Historic District. So they have met and they approved the work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. The next one, article, page 6 was the Wareham Housing Authority stoop replacement. And I'm sure you all were aware last night, the Board of Selectmen reviewed these articles. This one was rejected by Attorney Bowen. The Wareham Housing Authority is a gray area for us legally, so I inquired. I asked Mr. Bowen to please look into the legality of this. We all in this room are in favor of supporting Agawam Village's rehabilitation and bringing their living quarter, the living up to standards of good housing for those folks. All of us support that. However, if it does not meet CPA legal guidelines, we cannot go forward. So I asked Mr. Bowen to review these. You should all in your packet have received a document that looks like this. And so you can see that on the second page, it has what is appropriate for CPA funding and what is not. And Mr. Bowen went down this list, and what he explained was, and you'll see it here in this, that it says that in general, work that protects the housing structure itself, not residents, from future injury, harm, or destruction is permitted under CPA. However, the guidelines are broken down even further on that second page. And Mr. Bowen, in looking at this, he also conferred with Kathleen Colery, who is at state level, DOR, and I believe that communication even was taking place, last night at 7 o'clock during the Board of Selectmen's meeting. He was conferring with Ms. Colery on this. And he said that he felt that this, he feels that this does not meet legal standards for CPA funds, this particular one. There are 3 from Agawam Village.
Larry?
Yes.
Not to argue with Mr. Bowen, but the first paragraph of this note says, it believes it would be appropriate for CPA, help clarify the type of activities it believes would be appropriate for CPA funding. And then it says, please note, guidance is advisory in nature and not binding on your community. So in my judgment, we could make a decision contrary to this particular document and still be within the realm of whatever that great God that controls what we do. We'd have a very good argument to be able to do that.
unfortunately, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong, because again, it is, I'll let our legal analyst handle it in a minute. When it goes to the state, if we do decide to approve it at town meeting, they can reject it because they don't feel like it meets the criteria. So I'll turn it over to our local legal analyst.
No, I have no response to this. I'll respect Mr. Bowen's interpretation of it. You're right, that is what lawyers do. They interpret, and there's always room, but it's very difficult to ask the town to go against legal advice. It's just not advisable, especially the position that we're in with DOR right now. We're tiptoeing, we're smiling, and we're trying very hard to be a good little town.
Yeah. And Kathleen Caleri is DOR.
Yeah.
So,
And if she doesn't think it's a good idea, I can't say it's going to be a good idea. Tom?
I mean, we're under the scrutiny of DOR now. I wouldn't want to, push it anyway, you know what I
That's
mean?
it.
We're being
That's-
watched close enough, so I wouldn't want to bend the issue at all, you know what I mean? I agree, Mr. Bowen.
Has anybody seen the stoops? Have we had pictures? Do we know
Yes.
what these things look like? Are
they are here. I will leave the applications aside for you to look at. I didn't make application copies for each of you, but I have pictures
I can
here.
drive by and see exactly.
Mr.
what it
Slavin
looks
had
like.
a comment?
Are we discussing Article 6?
Yes.
Page 6, we are.
Article
The
6
stoops.
is off the table.
Right.
Selectmen under the charter and bylaws have the right to pull
Okay.
an article.
Okay, so
Don't waste your time.
no further discussion from us is needed because this will not be appearing before us as a warrant article. So,
Ditto
moving on
with
to the next
seven.
one. Thank you.
Information for the next.
Thank you for trying.
There are several, you said?
There
Now
are
we're-
two
now
more.
Article 7.
Article 7 is another one from the Wareham Housing Authority, asbestos remediation and floor replacement. This is for special town meeting as well. And as you can see, I have placed a notice at the top. Please refer to the Department of Housing, again, that document that I showed you, Housing and Community Development, and it says that this is a draft copy for legal counsel review. Again, Rich conferred with Kathleen Caleri on this one as well. And if I'm not mistaken, as you all watched last night with the BOS meeting, that he said that he would move forward with this, but he would leave it in town meeting voters' hands on this one. And this one is to see if the town will vote from Community Preservation Affordable Housing Reserve Fund or any other monies available in CPA fund, the sum of $35,000 to provide safe flooring to the elderly and handicapped residents of Agawam Village. This is to provide Agawam Village elderly and handicapped residents with safe flooring, conditional upon our lawful authority to do so. The goal is to remove and remediate 50-year-old broken asbestos tiles and install new flooring. We had some discussion last night, of course, of state property being funded by town residents, and the Wareham Housing Authority is the owner of it, but Mr. Bowen left this in the voters' hands, and they did move forward to put this on the town warrant.
The selectmen did leave this one on.
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
The way the article is written, there's a real question whether it would be acceptable.
Alan, can you use
Because-
the mic, please?
I'm sorry. I apologize. The way the article was presented last night, the way it was written, it talks about the removal of the asbestos, which really doesn't, that's the piece that's questionable. The flooring is structure, the asbestos is something different. The discussion by Mr. Bowen was he would give us a 51% favorable, which is awful tight. So the bottom line is we recommended, we voted basically 5-0-0 to go ahead with it on the basis that the article be rewritten so it specifically states it's for structural work.
That would be my recommendation
Because
as
the
well.
way it's written right now, it's not, I don't think it will pass.
Mr. Bowen and I have been known to change wording for semantics, but it is important to note, I understand the purpose is to provide safe flooring for the elderly, but that's not the purpose of what the state says you can do. So you can correct the flooring for the integrity of the building, which actually will provide safe flooring, but that's not so. So if you can clean up that language and make it very clear, I think that's, any other questions or comments on this?
Not till we get to the end.
Okay. I know it's coming. So let's go through this one, and then we can get to that. Article 8.
Article 8, and that's your last.
Angela, you need your mic back.
Sorry, excuse me, sorry. Last one, Article 8, and again, this is Agawam Village, replacement of underground plumbing in Building 1. These buildings are located at 57 Sandwich Road. This, again, it was the draft for legal counsel review, the same discussion that Mr. Bowen worked with Kathleen Colery on reviewing this, to see if the town will vote to appropriate from Community Preservation Affordable Housing Reserve Fund or any other monies available in Community Preservation Fund the sum of $59,000 to remove and replace underground plumbing at Building 1 at the Wareham Housing Authority Agawam Village Complex. The goal of this project is to remove and replace underground 50-year-old plumbing in Building 1 in order to provide upgraded and updated pipes at the Wareham Housing Authority Agawam Village Complex, conditional upon our lawful authority to do so. So again, last night it was voted to put this forward and leave it in the voters' hands.
Any comments on this article, questions?
I have the applications. Again, I apologize, I didn't make application copies for you, but they are coming to you, and you can see pictures that they provided of the properties.
Jeff?
But, I might be off base on this, but how does it exactly work? Does the Wareham Housing Authority, what are their plans for these maintenance items? I mean, what would the normal course of action be? Would they issue a bond and do it through their own operating budget versus?
No.
I think historically the problem is nothing. I think that's actually, it would probably be nice to get someone in here, Larry, who would speak to this.
It would be nice to get
It's tough.
somebody in here.
I mean, if you
to
read
explain altogether.
this opinion actually, it states how the affordable housing component was put in to create housing, not necessarily maintain what's there, because that should be an ongoing budget issue of whoever owns that housing. So I would, and again, I know we're not doing this tonight, but I would like to speak to that department to see where, what are their plans, because what's next,
Mr. Bowen suggested last night that Wareham Housing Authority have a structural engineer or an architect come in, and that they need to explain why the structural integrity of the building is at risk.
I think before town meeting, we will try to have someone come in from the Wareham Housing Authority and speak to us. I think that'll solve a lot of the issues.
Yes.
Mrs. Worthen?
I believe that this funding that they're requesting from us is part of a much larger state grant, because they are looking for funds, which I think was kind of lagging maybe in the past, but there is, I think it's even in the application.
Yeah, if you look at the application when it comes to you, I believe that the
It says
total cost is
$354,000. So we're only a portion of what
Okay,
their total
exactly.
renovation cost.
Right.
All
That
right,
makes
I'm not
sense.
going to use the word renovation. What's the word I need to?
Preservation.
Preservation. Thank you. To make it legal, preservation
We'll have a whole new
costs.
vocabulary when this is
Okay.
done.
Right. And I understand that, but I absolutely agree with you, Larry. Before I could even, I want somebody from Wareham Housing Authority to explain the entire project.
I'll see if I can. I don't know that we'll be able to do it next week, but probably the following week, if that works for everybody. Okay.
This underground plumbing, do we know that if any of it is drinking water or sewerage, or is this heating pipes, or is anyone, I mean, it's hard to say by these. They look like, some type of heating pipes, but,
Like steam, yeah.
steam. I mean, because if they were like, water pipes, drinking water, then maybe we should get the
District
water
to pay.
department, district to pay, correct. That's what I was getting at. But they don't look like water pipes. But we don't know.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Question on
You have the detail in front of you, I don't have.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Doesn't even
it
say.
doesn't say, I mean, they definitely don't look like drinking water pipes. That's, I mean, they look more like plumbing, but Just a question I
Well,
have,
we'll
whether
get,
or not.
we'll get someone in to talk about that. I
Thank
really
you.
think it's probably gonna answer a lot of our questions, because the bulk of these articles are to the Housing Authority.
Yes. And that's why Mr. Bowen yesterday suggested that they have someone at town meeting to explain structurally and architecturally what
But we're special.
talking.
We want it explained to us first.
They can practice on us.
Okay.
We have a whole new committee.
They want our
we
our
have
sanction, they better.
Any other questions or comments for community preservation? Thank you.
I just want to say kudos, because, wow, this was really good. I mean, you had all your motions and everything all in one package. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. If you only knew.
I have a question, excuse me, John, well, I'm still thinking of it. What happened with the request for money for the repair of the dam?
The dam project.
The dam project.
The dam project.
I'll say it.
Is being reviewed by Municipal Maintenance and AD Makepeace. They are looking into the property itself, and we need further information. All the information that we require to have in place so that we could move forward with it was not ready at the time of our deadlines. So things will be pushed forward into fall, more than likely. But they're working on resolving those issues, those questions that are still being worked on. They have
Title
surveys and
search.
engineers, yeah, title search, ownerships, and so on, having to do with the dam. And the Tremont Nail was also pulled because they found a resolution to it. They worked with the fire department, and so the fire department and municipal maintenance, Mr. Menard has been working very hard with the fire department and town hall as well to find a resolution, and they have. So that's been pulled.
Oh, I saw that. I was grateful. And as I explained, and I will explain to other people who may not get it, one of the frustrating points of being up here, hearing these articles that haven't been fully fleshed out yet, goes to the calendar that we have here, because we have deadlines for submission. So we may not have all the details of what's going to happen, but if it's going to happen in a timely fashion and get onto the warrant, it's got to get done early. And then sometimes the article falls apart because further detail comes out. So it's a little bit frustrating, and I ask the newer people to bear with us, but that's how our town government works. Some of these are placeholders until we know if it can come to fruition. We've seen this happen before with zoning bylaws, planning board articles, that the hearings don't get done in time, they don't have everything, but it's really hard to work forward. So I'm just saying that I really hope that all of us who are hearing these things that are going to happen in the fall, it happens in plenty of time for the fall, so that we're not doing it at the last minute then, so.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Beyond
because-
your control, I understand, but I
Yeah.
also understand that we have to do these proactively, and that's why it seems a lot of times there's a lot more information that we don't have. So this gives us time to ask those questions before town meeting. Dom?
You know,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
now that that's all done and over with, I don't know if this is the right time, whatever, to ask this, but I don't know if we can ask this from Selectman Slavin or Derek. The other day, what is the actual role for us, CPA, the people who are bringing these forward have to go to the selectmen to get approval. Then they have to come to us to get approval to move forward. Now,
Only town departments.
I understand that. Now, but I'm a little confused, because we were pretty much against the Tremont Nail article. Now, are we supposed to actually hold up things that we as a group decide is wrong, or should we really let them go through and let the town deal with it? Because we were kind of confused on that, Alan.
John,
And-
that might be conversation that we'll have within committee, but if
Well,
Mr. Slavin
well,
wants to
it's
address
not
that
so
for
much-
a minute.
not so much
Because I've
in-
had the same concerns
It's not so much in
afterwards.
committee, I understand that that's our thing, but I want to get clarification of what our role is in that decision, Al.
It's the board of
If
selectmen's
you-
policy, so.
No, actually, if you look at the policy that's there, the reason for that is that when an article, any town entity, it's not town department, any town entity, which means committee, commission, board, town department, Citizens petition articles, we have no say over. They automatically go through. But if it's any town entity, it has to have the permission of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. What both of these boards are supposed to be doing is looking at it to see how that article will impact the town now and in the future. If they feel that it's financially not responsible, at least from the Finance Committee point of view, you don't have to give an approval. And that stops right there. In order for them to move that article forward, both the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen have to approve that town entity coming before CPA to make an application. They cannot make an application at all until they have a letter from both the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen saying it's okay to move forward.
All right, thank you. Wait, Mr. McDonald?
It's redundant for the Finance Committee, very redundant, because the article comes back before us and then we beat it up if we don't like it.
I don't disagree, Larry,
So-
but the bottom line is that your job is to look at what the financial impact is. The Board of Selectmen looks at it a little different way, and therefore the two of them make a decision whether it works or not.
But unfortunately, that's what we do anyway. So to bring it before us before you bring it before us, just so we can tell them to go to that, I think that's a policy that needs to be revisited, because it's, and I don't want to tie up our time tonight because we got a lot to do, but that's exactly what you're asking us to do, is to look at it, review it, send it to them, then come back and review it again. And that doesn't make any sense.
The
considering
idea,
the time.
Larry, is that if it doesn't pass the initial muster, it's over and done with.
Right.
So this is a way to very quickly say no, if that's the case, or yes, and then it comes back and you discuss in detail. If not, if you don't have that, then you get all the way into this with all this work, and then all of a sudden decide there's a problem.
Well, then it was my fault, and I apologize to the entire committee, because we probably should have never sent that one through, considering that.
You have to remember, this is like a gatekeeper. Same thing with the Board of Selectmen putting warrant articles on the warrant. It's our duty, to sit there, and if something doesn't make sense, is not sensible for the town, we as a board have to take a hard stand and say, no, we're not going to bring it before the
Okay.
the
I don't
town.
think you can, don't say we shouldn't have, because you never took a vote on it.
No, well,
we did.
okay, let me try it another way. I apologize, because my understanding was that we had to either let it go forward or not let it go forward, and probably what we should have done is debated it then, but it could have turned into a bloodbath on that one, so I was trying to, but I apologize.
Okay,
And
we lesson learned. Dom?
Yeah, it was bloody, but,
There were some no voters.
that's why they moved me.
Well, no,
I scare you now, I hate to scare you later.
no, because what I was torn with, Larry, was, are we taking this away from the people's vote? That's what I didn't
That
want
was
to do,
my-
see?
that
That's
was
what I
what I
didn't want to do. I didn't want us to make that decision early if I felt that it was really the people of the town's vote. That's why I changed and said I wanted to go through with it, because I didn't want to shut it down, even though I felt against it totally. There was a few of us, and the vote would have stopped it right then and there. And I didn't know whether or not we should take that from the town, and that's where I was torn. We did feel that it wasn't right financially. And so we could have stopped it, and then we all thinking of ourselves, are we taking this away from the people? And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be in that position.
Well,
I'll make a comment, and it's a simple thing. We should be doing this based on intellect, not based on emotion. That's where we get in trouble. You're basing your decision on emotion when you say you're going to bring it to the people, rather than what you're up there with a skill set that you're supposed to do for the town, which is looking out for the town's finances as a finance committee. You have to make your decision based on intellect, not on emotion.
But that works two ways. That works both ways.
I don't disagree, because I
But you can't
recently,
forcibly shut something down because you don't believe in it either,
if you
on
don't,
principle.
if you don't believe on it because it economically does not make sense financially to the
Exactly.
town, that's your duty to say no.
Economic,
can
not on
Well,
if I can
personal.
interject here, hold
No,
on.
Preference.
Again, that's why it's not emotion.
I think this has been a learning experience for us because it's a policy that hasn't been put into effect before. So this is more or less the
No,
first time it's come.
been there since
The
a long
policy's
time,
been there,
but nobody bothers
but
to
nobody
do it.
brought it forward. So I don't think we understood our role as gatekeepers.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
You're trying to save time and make it more, the
And
whole
I-
thing work better.
And I think in fairness to the voters of the town, if we are to be an advisory board, and we should give them advice, it's very conflicting advice if we let this pass and go through to CPC, and then it comes back to us and we vote it down. So if we have something that we feel strongly about, and we have the ability to vote it down before it gets that convoluted loop in the future, that we understand we have that power. So it's been a learning experience for us.
Well, the
Mr.
board,
O'Donnell?
the Board of Selectmen, we basically made a mistake. we went ahead on Article 6 there and voted for it to go through, and we should have basically voted no at that time, because that's the part that we get to see is the legal issue, whether or not it's going to go through and pass the AG's, test. So we've basically wasted time. And the bottom line is because it's gone back and we've all discussed it again, which we had better things to do because we couldn't bring it through.
Just one last comment on that article that we debated quite heavily here, the $595,000 for Tremont, as you say up here. What was the selectmen's vote on that? Not that we care, but
The selectmen, I believe we were not going to bring, we didn't vote to bring it through because it never came to us. Because when it would have come to us, which would have been last night, the resolution was already taken care of between the fire marshal, which the fire chief.
you know, you guys,
Before it came to us, had to go to you first.
because that was the first question.
He went to you guys first.
They were working on it
David did, apparently.
after.
We were working. Yeah, we were working. We hadn't signed off on it.
Okay.
So we had got the motion that you had.
All right.
Not really.
Well, maybe we were,
I
maybe we
don't think
understand,
we
but
signed
I
off.
when we
repeat,
were here that night.
learning experience for all of
Okay,
us.
All right.
We won't make them.
We heard that you had. Whatever, I feel better now about it.
Tom,
about
did
our
you
vote
have
on it.
All right.
That's what I wanted to
Anything new to add to that, Tom?
Thank you.
Okay. Anything new that you want to add to that?
I have one question on Parker Mill. And I'm going back to when we had when we had a lot of rain, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and Taunton got wiped out by a dam failure. Do we know the risk, the status of the Parker Mill Dam, and how badly is it in need of work?
It's listed in the high risk, but it's not a dam that's imminently going to collapse or anything like that.
Okay, all right.
And that's where we're at with it. And that's why we're working on something, but we need to determine who owns exactly what of that piece of property.
But if it failed, it would be a significant could cause significant
Actually,
damage.
I talked to AD Makepeace about it, and because of the way the water would run with Route 28 and stuff, it's not as hazardous.
Oh,
It would
I
be more
see.
important if the dam farther upstream
All right,
let go.
you
The one down
get the
here,
special
if it let
until
go, would be
3
minimal
weeks
damage.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you
Thanks.
all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on our agenda, Mr. Sullivan.
I'm going to collect the applications, if that's okay.
They're all over there.
Hopefully we haven't all ripped them apart. No.
Should be 3 of them, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Derek, we have donuts.
Donuts?
You want
Yeah,
some?
you want some donuts? They're good. My friend, since she said that, I got some more.
I'm on the Capital diet.
I'm gonna diet too.
Dunkin' Donuts diet.
I'm gonna diet too.
Yes.
Do you have the transfer request for us? Thank you.
Dinner.
Thank you.
How's it been? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you've spoken about this previously. Just refresh our memory.
Yes, this is a transfer in the amount of $22,000 for the triennial reval. The triennial reval is one of the most important things that we do financially in the town because it sets the fair market value. If the DOR does not accept your triennial revaluation, they will not set your tax rate.
When does it have to be completed by?
This has to be completed, most of this will be done before the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
So there will be a couple more items that will be picked up in the beginning of next fiscal year, but this is all part of this, would have to be done, and the DOR working on it throughout October, November. So that's why this is imperative. As everyone knows, we had bids on this for the residential and commercial aspect, and the bids came back higher than expected. However, by awarding both contracts to the vendor at the same time, the town will save $10,000. As when they separated out the contracts, it would have been essentially, it's not necessarily a penalty, but we would not get the credit for having both.
Are there any questions on this? I will entertain a motion.
Is the total thing this $104,000? What?
Yeah, the total amount for it came out to a little over 116,000. Then we also have the permitting required by the triennial reval. We also, there's personal property you need to do as well, but we're funding that possibly through a town meeting with an interdepartmental transfer. So
The total reevaluation cost is going to be?
the total reval cost is probably looking closer to 140,000, I would say, is easily the number we'd be looking at. And that's not included the regular staff and their work and the costs associated with it. We've done this for the past, I know at least the past triennial reval. Next year, we're going to have to budget as well because we have the cyclical, the 10-year coming up, and we are behind on some of our permitting for that, and we'll have to catch up. We are doing a real estate auction this year, and we're looking to put some of those proceeds aside. If we were to budget for it next year in FY15, the cost could be approximately $200,000 to $250,000 and put us further into deficit. So we're looking for outside funds to pay for that. And that's really what you'd use one-time revenues such as the sale of tax title properties and such for.
Because you only have to do it once every 10 years? Is that?
Yeah, for the cyclical, you should be maintaining the permitting, but as we also know, we've reduced the assistant assessor position. And this is what's been happening to us. As we keep on reducing our staffing, we're relying more and more on contractors to come in and do the jobs. So if we're not budgeting them annually, at some point, you have to pay a larger lump sum. In a way, it's no different than maintaining a home or a vehicle. If you're not doing it every year when you're supposed to, you'll have the large hits.
Anyone else? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? I think it's unanimous.
700.
Thank you.
What am I signing?
Fiscal 2015 budget update.
Right here? Oh, the date. About the 700.
I don't know how many more of these updates I can take.
Just sign what she
Not
tells
so
you.
enough to do donuts, making you get up and down and up and down. Get your exercise here too.
I gotta do all four of them?
They're making fun of me for wheezing while going up the stairs,
You can, why don't you just sign my name? What is the problem here? You still gotta sign my name.
I remember that from Animal House. I don't know.
What's that?
They did
Marilyn,
the
I
little
gotta do
thing on the stroller.
the update before you get started.
Thank you.
The update of what?
It says, the 2015 budget update. So first we're going to do a little update before you get started. Tell me you didn't have anything change between now and then.
Between now and when?
Well, the last time you handed us a giant mess.
I am handing you, while not a balanced budget, this is the numbers we've been working through, a less giant mess, a substantially less.
Well, first, let me give them the update because as I need the committee to know what we're going to do tomorrow. So tomorrow, I will be working with the school superintendent and the town administrator so that on the budget. What I'm doing more is an informational thing. I'm trying to make sure everybody's on the same page so we're all working towards the same goal. So I don't want to go into that without the committee aware of that, number one, and Mrs. Donahue's going to join me as well. Just to give them the update for what we talked about, what we're looking for as far as the 5-year projection, the numbers, so we get a better understanding of, because we really don't have a lot of input from the school on how it works on the school side, and they've been asked to make a very significant cut to their budget. So I need to know how they're going about doing that and how they're building it into a 5-year plan, so that when we come back to the committee, we'll have information so that we can all sit and talk about it. Is that okay with everyone, first off? Okay. Well, that was it. I just want to make sure. I don't like to do things behind people's back. You know, that's not my style. So, all right. Now it's your turn, Derek.
Thank you. As we walk through this, what you'll most likely notice going through on the bottom section of page 1 of 6 is the miscellaneous non-recurring. You'll see a revenue amount of $150,000 versus the $440,000 projected for FY14, and you'll also see in FY13 we had brought in over $530,000. That's the line item that the Department of Revenue had the issue with, and we will for revenues, we'll be resolving that issue. As such, you're seeing that we will not be using those funds in fiscal 15 to balance the budget. If you go to page 2 of 6, one of the things we were going to try to do this year was bring...
Hold on.
Are we talking about miscellaneous non-recurring, the second line from the bottom?
Yes.
Miscellaneous non...
$320,000? Am I looking?
150,000, miscellaneous non-recurring.
Miscellaneous non-recurring.
That would be like
It's the
EMS.
second from the bottom.
535.
Okay, I'm a line too high.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, I'm
Derek,
sorry.
what do
Thank
you
you.
put into that line?
Yeah, this line is actually, that's one of the items. We used to use tax title interest in there. Tax title revenues not allowed. Tax title interest should maybe be allowed, but wasn't this year. So rather than having an 11th hour issue next year, we will be more conservative in our estimates.
So it's not allowed for budget projections, but it's real cash that we get.
It is real
So
cash.
it
It
will flow
is-
into our free cash?
Yes.
Okay.
It is income that we will get. Miscellaneous non, the interesting thing about our EMS, and this is one of the things we need to think about this year, is when we vote the EMS as an offset receipt, you'll notice we vote the expenses. So we'll do the salary, the expenses, the capital line we had in there, and then we'll vote the revenues as well. We've always been voting them as the same. Because you vote them the same, you can't use that revenue, the excess revenue from the EMS, because you've basically voted it as a wash. So that's one of the
But
things we have to look into.
It still shows up in free cash.
It still
Okay.
shows up in free cash, and that's one of the things that's been helping us year after year to have free cash, is letting that flow through. In an ideal world, you would have every dollar spent and every dollar match up to revenue, but we know there's some lean years and there's some better years. So again, that's one of the things that we keep conservative, and
Can I ask
we
a
probably
question?
wouldn't change that.
Bonnie?
So with the EMS, I mean, voting whatever capital we need to maintain that is smart, is what you're saying, then that doesn't flow to free cash later. I mean, we're actually taking care of the department that we want it to take care of.
Right. When we look at it, we can vote we can vote it as the department we'd like, with enough staff, with enough ambulances, and as long as we have enough revenue to cover that, we're fine. And in fact, as we can bring more ambulances online, and as we can have additional staffing in there, you are having some revenue offsetting that. Their health insurance, and that can change by who you have for staffing. Right now, we have most of the plans are single-family plans, which is a much better cost. So they are projecting into a surplus, not a huge one, but enough that it helps our free cash numbers. As we move forward, if we don't continue to gain more revenues, if we bring more staff on and don't do more runs, it could be a potential negative situation. So that's one of the things we need to keep our eyes out on.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is under available funds. So when you see, and it actually should be 78,000, I think 546. I'll check the Warren article for that.
Where you
The
at?
harbor service pyramids on the second page.
Okay, gotcha.
You'll see, those are the funds that are brought in by the harbor master. harbor service permit fees, waterways fees, those cannot be used for the general fund for any purposes. So in other words, we can't bring those in to fund teachers or to fund any police and such. You might be able to use it if there was some sort of harbor festival or something on the water for maybe some of the overtime costs that's associated with that. But that's a little bit on the loose end there. So when people see that the harbor master's purchasing certain items, they say, why couldn't that go towards something else? It legally can't. It has to go for the proper functions. So either that money keeps on building up and we never expend it, or we try and use it for purposes to bring people into the town and bring more revenue in. The wetlands protection, that $20,000, we use that to offset the salary of the conservation agent. So although I believe his salary is approximately $55,000, his impact is $35,000. The wetlands protection is brought in from fees, from the conservation fees. Yeah. The water pollution control, this is the big change you're going to see here. $200,000 administrative fee.
I'm gonna hold him down.
You will see from the Department of Revenue that is allowable. It is for the costs associated with the personnel's time from the general fund. In other words, if the treasurer, collector, finance director is working for hours upon the water pollution control facility, that should be a cost of the water pollution control facility. And it is not just that person's salary, it is also all benefits associated with that. That is not just allowable, but it's what the DOR highly recommends.
Mm-hmm.
So if we any of the work being done for it, if Labor Council does work for the water pollution control for the unions, if legal counsel does the work, if I have the meetings with them, assessing, collecting doing the databases and such, those are all costs that should be passed on to the water pollution control facility. And you'll see this is the first time that we have it, and that's one of the major items that we've done.
Thank you, Mr.
It's only
McDonald.
3%, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Mr. McDonald?
Just a couple things.
Historically, it is.
Huh?
Anyway, a couple things. When you look at enterprise accounting and enterprise how to handle it, can we deal with this? Are we dealing with this correctly? Because I'm not sure we are. There are specific things you can do and specific things you can't do. While I'm not saying that the money's not correct, but how we're dealing with this, you obviously can't invoice them.
Right.
I'm not sure transfer is the right word for what we're doing, but maybe that's something we can go through. The other thing is, I know that, so this is really part of the water pollution control facilities budget.
That's correct.
All right, so is there a way, and I know this spring town meeting may be too late to think about this, but is there a way that we can vote water pollution control on a separate article from the main budget?
We do vote them separately from the main budget.
Okay.
These revenues, we do not. The revenue.
Okay, that's my point,
Okay.
is I know what you're talking about, but
Right.
we're voting it as one line item. And what we need it to be is, and maybe it's not something we can do this year, but to break down the line items.
Yeah, I think Claire had.
What do you know? I may have had a conversation with her. You just don't know about these things.
Wow.
But the point is, and again, because this year in the budget, or this year in the warrant book from the finance committee, we want to include in the appendices the budget for the water pollution control facility, because it's going to become a hot button topic as it's going to increase as a hot button topic, and people need to see what they're voting on.
It's going to come back to haunt us all. That's all.
Not us, but
this is where I started, and this is where I'm going to end.
but that's my whole point. Is I know that's why you got on here in the first place, but the reality is we've never really sat at town meeting and looked at the numbers. the way we're going to this year. And I'm afraid what's going to happen is when we get into the budget and we're looking at certain things, when people start looking at the appendix on the water pollution control, there's going to be several questions on that. And so we need just to be ready for that. But on the article, I know we might not be able to do it this year, but that's something to consider, is putting this together in such a way that when we vote on it, it's not just 2 line items, it's more broken down.
Yeah, the budget itself, we'd be able to do that and show it through there.
Okay.
And so I think that would be easier. And the available funds, when we vote the operating budget, I mean, you could say X amount from available funds, including X amount from the water pollution control, but try not to, unless the DOR has already passed something, I try not to get too creative. The last thing we want is it thrown out, but I know that Madam Moderator had some great examples of what we can and can't do.
And also, did they rule on the retained earnings part of the revenue?
As for the usage of
Well,
it?
for the revenue part of it, part of that was retained earnings.
I don't know the question on that.
So the question I had was, we were using that as part of the revenue, which was offsetting sort of the EDU rate, if you will. Are we still going to be doing that?
You can do it. It is allowable, not recommended, and we've been stopping
you.
the recommended.
Recommended.
Yeah.
But that's been something, that's been my pet peeve for a long time, because I think we're creating a bigger problem than what we're.
Larry?
I'm patenting the term recommended. Hold on.
Recommended. Could you write that down and we'll just attack? Okay.
Kelly?
That's all I have, so I'll go back to my quiet. Marilyn's going to run the meeting for a while.
Well, actually, I'm just going to read something out of the DOR Enterprise Fund, and I don't know if it's been updated since April 2008. And I'm just concerned that we do this properly for all the other reasons, and I know we mentioned this before. The Bureau recommends that every community with an enterprise fund establish a written internal policy regarding indirect cost allocation and should review the policy annually. So I think we understand what those indirect costs are.
Yep.
We know where they're coming from, and we know that they shouldn't be allocated to one department, which is fine, so we can call them indirect costs. But I'm concerned about the second paragraph that says, do not appropriate these costs in both the general fund operating budget and the enterprise fund budget.
Right.
That's the line I'm concerned about, so let's get that very clear before we misstep.
That's actually, when you've watched the town meeting warrants, the articles we've done for the last 2 years. If you remember, there was 2 years ago, we actually had to change the article because we were essentially double appropriating it. And that's why you now see it's usually a revenue adjustment, I think we call it. So that's, I know.
Oh, be careful, because now we have a new definition of that, too.
So,
All right, but thank you.
stole our wording.
Okay, keep,
I'll give you the answer to it easily. They've been robbing us, now we're gonna rob them. How's that for an answer? Okay, and I'll leave it
Strike
alone
that.
at that, all right? Alan
Strike
loves
that,
me,
move
but
on.
That's it, strike it, leave it in there.
go ahead, Derek.
So that's the main changes, but as you go through, if you remember the multiple page document that broke down all the employees and their costs, since we're bringing in and not doing them as separate articles, the items such as the harbor service permit fees, the 78,000, you'll then see the additional 78,000 budgeted in the department, in the harbor master's department. So they essentially are offsetting one another. When you go to the school, this is on page 5 of 6. This is a level funded budget, so not with no additional reductions to it. Correct. There's 800 and some odd thousand, 51,000, I believe, reduced from the request. But this is a level funded budget. The other items that there was a small savings from the debt lines. We brought them in on the exact marks. We have those numbers available. And as you go through it, those were essentially all the items. What you will see now is the medical insurance going up to 7.4 million. That's because at one time we were trying to fund the water pollution control as a true self-funded entity. And this, while that's probably a good goal, I don't think this is the year that we get everything done that we want to. So there's a lot of changes to be made, and that we may just be putting too many irons in the fire. So on the Upper Cape Cod VOTEC, that's a little over 3 million instead of the 3.4 million due to the change in assessments. And that leaves us a current deficit of $234,529.
10% of what we were last week.
So,
Look at it this way, a 5-year deficit of
Correct.
8.7, or 8,711,911, and a 6-year deficit of 13,470,281. Add the numbers up. I'm looking at 15 going forward.
Oh, you're adding them, okay.
Yeah, because I can add.
Thank you.
And I did that. When I really thought maybe I was sitting here texting on my phone, I was adding. Just so you know.
Thank you for explaining that.
But
So-
the school is level funded, not
That's
level
your brain candy
service,
crush.
right?
correct.
So we need to,
And as we go through this, you'll see there's an increase to the town's budget over FY14. The largest portion of that is the snow and ice budget, putting more money into that. That's something simply we have to do. However, to get where we are, that would mean you would close the library entirely and shut down the Council on Aging. The police, we had additional reduction for the 3 additional officers,
And reductions to municipal maintenance.
reductions to municipal
So
maintenance
this is the
staff.
budget you gave us last year with the change, last week.
Yep.
With the changes you just itemized today, so.
Correct.
So now, if we've cut all those things and made these changes, for this year, we still have a deficit, 234,000.
See, this is, oh, can I,
You may.
this is the problem. I can if I want to. You're right. Thank you. When you look at the deficit, that's fine to look at the deficit, but when you try to take that deficit out of the budget, by the time you get to year 3, where are you going? I mean, even obviously, without the school piece in here, when you try to take it out in 16, you're taking out $800,000. Well, that doesn't sound that bad, but considering what you took out this year, it sounds pretty bad. And then next year, you're going to take out $1.6 million. So at some point in time, you're not cutting benefits. Well, you will be cutting benefits at some point, but you're not going to do much about the retirement. It's still there. And then when you get to 18, if you can tell me how you're going to cut $2.5 million out of your budget, you may win an award, because I don't know where you're going to get it from. You know, and that doesn't even get you to the 19. So,
Yeah, I think that's one of the key reasons, as you've requested, to have this going out multiple years. And I think that while the charter says you need to have the current, the previous, and then the ensuing fiscal years, it is more important for the people to see our multi-year projections.
Yes, it is.
Because like you said, now, hey, level funded, or you cut 230,000, that's not too bad. The people forget every year. They say, okay, well, they're going to cut 500,000 this year. That's not too bad, but it's cumulative, and it's building upon itself. Now, if, when we talked about revenue adjustment, the revenue adjustment still does not solve all the issues.
well, but the budget you showed us didn't have the
Right.
cuts you have in it now.
Right.
Nor did it have the water pollution control facility aspect of it as well. I guess my point is the reason we want it is if we're going to, and we'll get into this a little later, when we write the letter from the finance committee to the town, I want to be able to say, despite whichever way we go at this point, this is what you're going to get. I don't want people to assume that. I want them to see it. So you know, I'm not advocating for or against, because there's obviously, even if you put, you're right, if you put it in there the way it is now and add that, we come up with a number out of the blue, 3.5, you're still in a deficit situation by year 3 or 4, I think it was. So now it comes back to, okay, what do we do to reduce that cost? How do we reduce that cost? You know, what do we do in the process? Because I haven't seen, and I know Selectman Slavin's sitting over there, so I'll just say this, I haven't seen a lot of direction or a lot of advice from the Board of Selectmen. You know, we're trying to work through this process with the administration and as well as the school, but in the end, we're here to advise, you know, and so what I really like to do, and I don't know how the committee feels, I'd like to go up to the selectmen and said, you know, is this what you're wanting to do? Do you want an $8.9 million deficit? And that's what you have to do. I mean, not you personally, but us, we have to go to the selectmen and say, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to allow this to run out to $8.9 million? Do you have a plan? And I'm not thinking there's a plan. So, I don't know. Anybody else?
We won't put you on the hot seat tonight, Mr. Slavin, but I'll suggest that,
I know, and that's our problem.
We put this off 5, 6, 7 years.
Mhm.
We look at it, we say, okay, and we kind of pull it.
no, he doesn't want to go, okay.
Smile when you give the answer, just so I...
At the end of the day, we don't have a plan yet, obviously. We've talked about what we're gonna have to do. We talked about what the town has to do. We talked about, 4-day work week. We talked about condensing departments. We've talked about having to have layoffs, moving pieces around, looking at the schools for the capacity of the schools and moving one piece to another, possibly closing a school building out, doing transportation changes. I don't know if the newest budget Derek has, whether that includes the full transportation program, or whether it's what they talked about, maybe going from kindergarten to 6th grade. There's just a lot of things. At the end of the day, we have $1, and that's all we have to pay. Because the problem is that the town of Wareham will not go bankrupt, I don't believe, because we'll stay a balanced budget and pay our bills. We'll just keep cutting. But what will happen over a 3 or 4 year period is we'll get to a point where we no longer provide services that the state, not so much mandates, but that we were supposed to do as a municipality. That's when we'll get in trouble. And that will happen first, but the bottom line is we now have to start looking at this and actually doing things. We talk about it, we gloss over it, and we don't implement. And every department in town is guilty. It's not just one side, other side. I don't want to hear that anymore. We have to sit down and figure out what we're going to do with the dollars we have coming in.
Even if some of it is wrong, you got to do something.
We can't sit there and do nothing.
You're right.
Because nothing doesn't work.
Nothing is why we're here today.
Nothing is why we're here, and I'm not going to say how long it's been nothing, but the bottom line is that, Proposition 2.5 has taken a while, but it's finally taken its full effect to all of us now. And unfortunately, the economy's the wrong way, all these things. And anything that we're bringing into the town, which we're working hard to do, is 2 or 3 years down the road before you have benefits. It's not a good answer.
And I would suggest that you're being optimistic when you say 3 or 4 years out, because I'm looking at these numbers and I'm looking at the cuts that we've already had.
But you'll
and
continue
the financial constraints that we're under. And it's little problems is where it shows up. We can't fix our own buildings because we don't have $25,000, which is a lot of money in a household budget. If I were painting my house and I got stuck with that, I'd scream. But for a municipality to not have the money to take care of its buildings, I mean, we've been seeing this coming and coming, and it's here now. So I suggest that we don't have 3 or 4 years to rectify this.
Well, I'll give you a very quick example. I believe I was told 2 days ago, and I haven't checked it out, so I hope I'm not putting out wrong information. There was talk about the coal plants over in Seekonk. Someone told me the plants are closing, and there was supposed to be an emergency meeting, and I haven't checked it out to make sure. But if the plants close, the revenue loss to the town of Seekonk is so drastic. I was told that they were going to have to lay off 50% or more of all their employees and cut all their services. It basically devastates that town. We've done the same thing slowly, that's all. Unfortunately,
and we're not in
work.
it alone.
And there's a lot of other cities and towns the
Every
same
city and
way.
town are having similar discussions.
I fully expect to probably get out there on a bandwagon and basically go to the state and the federal government and say, If you don't fund it and you mandate it, we don't do it. I've already talked to 3 or 4 other communities a year ago about getting together and doing something like that, and they were all for it, so. I'm gonna have to do something, because I don't have an answer. It's not I don't want to, I don't have an answer.
I think one of the things we ran into last year, we had the large discussion on our committee. I think it turned into kind of a pretty angry discussion at moments, is that we didn't recommend the budget. The reason for it is it didn't address the needs of the town. That in mind, there's no stability in this fund. There's no stability funds that are here. There's no capital funds in here. I'm looking at a list, and Mr. Gibberti was kind enough to sit here and give us a list, which doesn't seem to be getting any smaller, and these are just the ones that are important. We have no way of funding them. And if you take that money, if one of those goes, we have no money to do that. So I agree with Mrs. Donahue that we can't keep waiting. And I know everybody hates the word override in this town, and that's fine. But if you tell me that by 2017 we won't have a little help from someone else, I don't see how with the numbers we're looking at.
It's not gonna happen.
Well, if it's not going to happen, then what are we going to be sitting in? Because you've already, at that point, you're already down $3 million, and I don't know where you're getting it from.
As I said before, the last time we spoke about this, we need to get our house in order. We need to make all the changes that we've talked about and put it in place so that the citizens at least see that we have an issue, we're trying to do something about it, and then you sit there and you bring forth your override, listing where that money specifically is going to go, and you make an attempt. This town doesn't have a history of doing overrides. This is not an easy sell.
I'm not
because we
disagreeing with you.
Excuse me, two different issues.
Yeah.
Selling it is a different part of it. Do we need it? Do we, as financial advisors to this town, believe in it? That's the issues that we're going to be discussing.
If we want to provide services, we need it. If we don't want to provide services, then we don't need it. We can sit and ask Mr. Sullivan, as from the Board of Selectmen, make a list of charges for everything we do, and anybody who wants that service, they have to pay for it. Because that's where we're going.
But because selling it and explaining it will come out after we have a plan. The first part is we need to come up with the plan.
I'll make what I call an emotional rather than intelligent statement. The bottom line is that over the years, every time we've cried wolf, no matter what department it is, we somehow found a way to get around it.
With a long series of cut, Alan, and I've got a list going of what we've already lost over 10 years.
I know.
mean, it hasn't hurt enough because we have some very competent people. We have some good department heads and some good workers in this town who have just filled in the gap. We've had some technology that's helped us too. We've made use of grants and other sources of funding. So we have been filling in the gaps. But you can't tell me that people don't feel the lack of services. Paying $300 for trash pickup. We lost our municipal trash pickup. I'm not paying the town for a service, but I'm still paying it out of pocket. Our insurance, our homeowners insurance, has gone up because of problems with municipal maintenance and inspectional services. So I'm paying additional money on my homeowners insurance. That's not revenue coming into the town. It's still coming out of my pocket. So I think that's an argument to the taxpayers. They're going to pay this money one way or the other. If they pay it to the town, hopefully we will be able to promise them some kind of services and increased value to their property. If they don't pay it, I'm pretty sure they're not going to get either one of them. They're going to get bare minimum. And I'm sorry, I'm being very passionate about that, and that's not the role here, so I will go back to Mr. Let him go back to it, because I just...
I live here and I'm a taxpayer.
We all are.
You want to be on the mic, too, if you're going to...
Push the button, Larry.
I'm sorry. I think we agree that something has to be done. And by saying, well, when we get our house in order, well, we need to get our house in order now. Obviously, we can't do everything that we need to do to make it work right now, but we can begin the process. And when I ask what is the selectmen's going to do about it, when the selectmen are going to do about it, then the answer should be we're working on a plan, or we have a plan, or at least we have some inkling of a plan.
We need a plan. It's as simple as that.
Well, then, instead of talking about we need a plan, we need to be talking about the plan, and
I'm assuming when you meet tomorrow, you'll be discussing
that is what
the basis of a plan.
That is what I hope to gain from information from the town administrator and the superintendent. So then we can go forward. But as far as whether or not an override sells in this town or whatever, I think it's our duty to make advice to the town meeting voters of what's the best course of action for this town. That's what our job is, the best financial course, the fiscal nature of it. So if people don't want to vote for it, if they don't want to take our advice, I understand that completely, because ultimately it isn't us or you that makes the decision. It's the town voters.
Actually, the Board of Selectmen unfortunately does make the decision on the override.
And I'm so happy, because once, all we do at town meeting is we vote to send it to the selectmen, and then the selectmen do the process of getting it on the ballot. And at that point, where it's out of our control, but we've done our job to advise town meeting.
That's the capital planning committee the same way. I mean,
Pardon me?
your capital planning committee, just so you know, there's items they just completely taken off their list because you can call them non-obtainable, so they've just been pulled off.
And one of the things that I've asked for, and I think, not asked for, but one of the things I think that's very important is that we recognize that we've had poor fiscal management in this town. Doesn't mean we're blaming anybody specific, but for the last 10 years, we've ignored capital. We've ignored doing some of the things that we need to do. We've made bad decisions that's come back to bite us. So, you know, whether or not it was who it is doesn't really matter, but we can't continue to, we're running out of time.
We already ran out of time.
Okay, we're really running out of time now. The wall's crumbling. We're at the wall and it's crumbling, because I'm looking 3 years down the line and I don't see any hope unless we do something now. And that's not emotion. I like to think I'm pretty good with numbers. I mean, this is what I do for the last 30 years, but.
The numbers are there, Larry.
All right. So
we're not disagreeing. I'm just disappointed in myself and everybody who's elected, appointed, that in the last 3 years, we haven't sat down and said, you know what, we know what's coming, let's do something.
Okay, so
don't do it.
My last point is, and I promise I won't say it again, if it gets to the town meeting and it gets back to the selectmen and the selectmen vote it down, and then I pulled it up again and asked what the plan is, and there's no plan, does that
He's
make
getting
sense?
passionate now, too.
No, he's absolutely right, whether he's passionate or not. The fact is, even if a revenue adjustment budget, thank you, did I get it right? Even if that gets back to the selectmen through town meeting and back to the selectmen for a ballot, and it fails, some tough decisions are going to have to be made.
The tough decisions have to be made now with the current budget, because you can't have a budget based on something that may or may not happen at town meeting.
Exactly,
So
that's
it's-
my point. There has to be a plan of action
It's what
in
Mr.
place.
Sullivan said right now. The plan is his budget.
I hope it's not just hanging on his head.
The budget is hanging on his head. He has to submit the budget. And that's that part of it. The problem is, can we go from that budget to something else, and how are we going to get there?
That again, we can talk about this later, but my point is, I don't think there's any choice on 2015, although I would have a big argument on my hand from the vice chairman. I think we're going to have to assume that by the time election comes around to vote on it, that we're going to be into 2015 quite a bit. So that means we have to balance out this budget. And but that gives us the ability to continue working on a plan, whatever plan we come up with, up until a certain point and that way, when people go to the polls to vote on it, they're looking at people that want to have good, sound fiscal management. They're looking at a plan that makes sense. And I'm sorry, Bonnie, I stepped all over it, and I'm going back to my.
That's what my whole point was, that the tough choices have to be made, and it's not going to. I don't think it should be one man's choice or one man's decision. Yes, he is the town administrator, and he is their boss. But historically, when these situations have happened in the past, it hasn't turned out so well. And I think the leadership of this town all around, and this is why, I spoke to the citizens earlier about what they want, and that guidance has to come down as to which direction we're going to be in. Because closing two departments in this town is going to cause a fiasco. It's not going to be pretty.
We don't disagree.
That's just not going to be pretty. And it's not going to get any better if that's plan one. there can be even worse decisions farther down the road.
That's what the people gotta see.
And the people have to know that.
People gotta see it, like they said, we've always got a way out, now there's no way out.
Tom, you have?
It's fine.
I think you don't have a choice but to come up with a budget that, with the revenue you've got for fiscal year 15.
Yeah.
And with, beyond that, you should make some very hard, or not hard, but just to build a different structure. And a structure that gets by with the minimum amount of additional revenue that you need.
I think, Tom, that part of the problem is that every time we suggest things, the first thing that happens is, well, you can't do this, or this is a problem. I think you're getting to a point where you're going to have to say, we're going to do this whatever way we can, period. Because you can't sit there iffy, because that's why things get put off. I mean, I don't like being in the position I'm in, but the bottom line is, I ran for office, I inherited whatever came. It's nobody's fault. I know what's here, and it's my responsibility as well as my other 4 fellow selectmen to do what we can to fix this. Doesn't matter. That's what we have in front of us.
And this may be construed as a political comment also, but after all the doom and gloom, I would like to say one positive thing, which is this town has more continuity now. One of the problems that we've been cited for in the past is continual turnover. So as much as it's a very easy answer to say, throw the bums out, we all know there's a learning curve here. There's a learning curve sitting here at Finance Committee. There is for the Board of Selectmen, and certainly with the town administrator. And we've all been frustrated to learn that, no, you can't do that this way in municipal government, the way you do in business, huh, Tom? Because there are realities that you're up against. And I think Alan's right when he speaks of, there's been a lot of things that sound like common sense, but you can't do them. So now we have to look at, we've been looking at alternative ways. We have to do the alternative ways and take some kind of action. And I do thank you both for your hard work and efforts on behalf of this town.
There are a lot of pieces that are put in place in the last couple of years. I mean, it's obviously been critical to have a town administrator that's there and stable. You know, having the finance, the accounting department stabilized, downstairs in the building inspection office there to get some stabilization there. Every piece is there. We have business coming in. The problem is that we're so far under financially, we can't get ourselves ahead. We're behind all the time. And it's going to require some drastic measures as well. I don't have any complaint with what's going on internally right now as far as the place being run.
I just had a horrible headline come across.
Yeah, you can.
So about all the reporters are over at school committee, so no one's covering us tonight.
We can add that to the Elks too.
I want Derek to be the TA who finally closed the library, that's all.
Aww.
These are things that you have, whether you like it or not, these are things you have to face and do. It's, it's not, it's a dollar and cents thing right now.
Oh, I understand that.
There's safety issues, et cetera, and it's very difficult. We're not alone. It's not an excuse, but we're not alone.
All right, we need to wrap this up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up with 6. Thank you for allowing us all to blow off steam. Mr. Sullivan, do you have any other news for us?
No, that would be the update, and you're correct. As you've seen, the only capital in there was the $100,000 for new set of police leases, and that actually begs the question: if you had an extra $1 million in this, would you put it towards capital, or would you put it towards bringing back, let's say, the library or some of those services? And that's
Right. As a property owner, you want to bring back the library.
Yeah.
In some form, somehow.
And that's, when we talk about a plan with compromise, I think it's an all-out assault.
I would disagree.
What?
I just said I would disagree.
Okay, don't
You do-
disagree.
you
Go
do
ahead,
what?
Marilyn.
I would disagree.
Okay.
We'll talk further to that tomorrow night as the multi-prong approach for the plan.
I held on to this. This was Derek's from last week.
I wouldn't mind going on.
It's not,
Thank
it's
you.
a
Thank you. I
exercise.
appreciate
Is this going to get, is this all
I
of
don't
a
know if
sudden
you
going
read it,
to
though.
be
No, it's,
publicized, this $250,000?
Technically, a
No, I'm going
draft
to
working
present this
copy.
to the Board of Selectmen before it would go any further.
Okay.
Plus, what we do tomorrow night might have some impact on this as well, right?
So.
Say goodnight to Derek and have some quick
Well, I
discussion.
don't know, just the way we've
Yeah.
represented the school number right now, I don't know if you can say it. you know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. We don't. we
Apples
don't-
and we're not talking the same as we were last week.
No, and the issue I have, and that's why I think it's important tomorrow night that I understand where everybody's coming from, so that when we, or maybe even have the school committee come to see us, is that we need to put this all together in one basket, looking at the school as well as the town, so that we can get a good feel for, as a committee, what we're looking at.
So-
In 2015, at
So
least.
Michael's not part of this number,
Michael?
of this, from the school?
The school committee has not voted that number. That's what matters.
But they have put together some, a plan that would get to that number somehow. There just haven't been,
The school committee would have to vote on.
They're still working on the first set of cuts that they talked about.
Tom, what you're asking me to do is put words into the superintendent's mouth and the business managers when they have a committee that they have to speak to
no,
first. So
no,
it puts me
I
to
understand
that.
it, but they've worked, to
I've
their point.
spoken to them about this
I'm assuming you're not doing this in a,
rogue manner.
That's been done before.
here's your number.
Good news, the town's up 2 million. Bad news.
Fireworks across the parking lot, though.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, Kelly's going to give us a quick lecture on what we have to get done in the next couple of weeks, a reminder, I guess.
Kelly back, we missed her a
No,
great deal. at the
She's
last
too
meeting.
tan.
I included a calendar in everybody's packet. It just highlights some of the due dates, deadlines that we have to deal with. I've added the special town meeting deadlines as well, because there will be a special town meeting warrant. But next week, we should anticipate getting the annual draft warrant. And then towards the close of March, we should get the special town meeting warrant. And then April is when we get down to the nitty-gritty to get everything done. I'm looking at the 9th to be the last day to vote, and hopefully the last day to get all the recommendations and everything we need for me to get the warrant.
Are you printing it yourself this week?
Well, that was what we had on the agenda too. That was another question.
How bad was it?
It wasn't too bad the last time. There were some copier issues. Couple times we had to call a technician to come and deal with that, but it was a smaller warrant. That's my concern.
This is too
Well, that's
much.
my concern.
Yeah.
And if there's glitches with the printer again, and
I'm under,
I don't know. I mean,
I'm under the thought process, because we're looking at a letter from the finance committee. We're looking at 30 articles. We're looking at some appendices. That this may be a little bit more than something we can print in-house. And
We'll get it done.
whose will get it done, Tom? Are you gonna help them print it?
well, that was, and there's expenses for the materials I'll need as well. We'll have to order all the paper, all the cover paper. So I don't know. That was one of my questions, is what will we do?
That's a pretty big warrant, and then you've got the pages. I mean, he wants
Well,
to
there's
do,
two-
does
yeah.
he wanted, the warrant says we have to do this year and back years, but he wants to do something
I
that
think
runs
we did,
forward.
what did we do, 250? I think
You're
we
gonna
did
have to
200.
print well over 300 for this one.
Yeah,
Right,
you're gonna-
right, no, I know.
The other thing I want to point out is unless, I don't know, does someone help you with it, or do you do it all yourself?
There's offers, and at times, like when the copier broke down, there was some help, but I had to piecemeal it. It wasn't like I was in there for set hours and just doing it. I had, because other people had to use the copier.
Did you price at Staples last year?
No, we've always kind of gone to Gateway Printing.
on Main Street.
We usually do.
I mean, we can price it out, we can look around, I mean, I just
They're
don't,
pretty reasonable, though. We usually.
yeah.
But if you need help, just call one of us, we'll get you volunteer help.
I think she's saying-
Tom just volunteered to help.
Really, I'm
Did
serious.
you have problems with a collator or something?
Yeah, it's just something would jam and
What the
then
heck?
something would break and
You're
there's
missing a
nothing we
page,
can do.
yeah.
Exactly.
And not for nothing, but that's a lot of wear and tear on our copiers too. I
It
mean,
is.
we're trying to nurse
That's-
along, we're on hold with
And again-
equipment.
Why can't we pay, why can't we send it out? We don't have the money, honey?
It's cheaper, yeah, to do it in-house, but
Yeah, but you know what?
Let's
Otherwise,
make,
pay
when's the last day you have to make that decision?
Well, I was just throwing it out there. I mean, I'm fine with doing it in-house if that's the way we want to go. I just wanted you to be aware that there will be some costs.
I
cost
think.
either way. We're
Exactly,
we're on the hook for it either way, so it's just,
exactly.
Hold on.
And
When we get closer, we need to
Revisit this?
decide
Yeah.
this, because I think this is gonna be a much bigger than just what she printed last time was one.
why don't we take a look and see what the warrant looks like
Yeah,
next
that's
week?
what I wanted
So
to
we're
do.
definitely meeting next week to look at the warrant.
The other thing is, I need to get on the schedules. We need to get on the schedules for,
Public hearing.
public hearing for the special town meeting as well as the other one, and if we're going to have the warrant on the 19th, wow, we probably need to have it no later than March 12th for the public hearing. Is that too early?
Well, if the special doesn't close until the
Well,
18th,
let's
can't we do
we-
them together?
No, we can't do them together.
Why
because-
not?
Well, maybe we can do them together. I think
I
it's
think
a,
we can do, I think we've done
We
it
advertise
before.
it, yeah.
We've done it before, but we've separated them out. Like, we open the annual warrant hearing, whatever, close it. Then we open the special.
The same night.
And right, we just
Yeah.
split it up. And I can put two different ads in as well.
But in the past, nobody came and nobody cared, so it was
Yeah.
really a formality, where I think this year,
as
with all
long
the
as nobody
discussion.
comes and nobody cares, we get right through
Yeah, I
it.
think this year, we're probably gonna generate a little more interest in our public hearing.
We can do it
I
one
still
night.
think it should be together.
I'd like to do it together.
Even if we worked on the regular town meeting warrant those first 3 weeks before we officially get, let's try to get as much of those cleaned up and out of the way. Then if we do that the week after, on the 26th, do the public hearing, finish up what we have to finish up, and then get it out of the way.
All right, public hearing on the 26th. The other thing we have to consider is,
Yep.
yes, March 26th. The other thing we have to talk about, there are three things. We're the letter from the Finance Committee, which has been traditionally called the letter from the chairman of the Finance Committee, but I think it really comes from the Finance Committee, just my opinion. We have to build that. We have to get with town council as well as the town moderator and to help write the motions, one of Mrs. Donahue's favorite pastimes. And we're also going to need to get advice written. We're going to have 30 articles. Clearly, we're going to need people to write some advice, and we'd like to do a workshop. Mrs. Donahue has suggested, and
Yeah.
I agree, that we probably need to do a workshop that day. I'll bring a laptop. We'll write somewhere in here, we'll do a workshop. I'll come up with a date, and we'll all write the advice together, or we'll write the advice and have everybody check it, because, again, I don't want any mud wrestling matches in the middle
I
of it.
would maybe recommend that we assign whoever's gonna write it right after we do the vote, and then
Right.
put everything together, so we will already have rough drafts to go with.
And we'll, yeah, okay.
Can I embarrass myself by asking a
Sure,
question?
embarrass yourself.
I've done that enough times tonight. When do we actually have to have the public hearing? I don't have my charter here.
after
The-
the warrant closes.
All right.
Isn't there a 2-week window? I'll
After
check.
the warrant closes or before town meeting? Because my thought is I'd rather push it, if we can push it out further, because I think there's going to be more interest. The closer we are to town meeting, there's more interest there
We have
is.
done that before too, once everything's wrapped up.
Because after everything's wrapped up, we don't have a whole
A
lot to do.
Exactly.
So it might be better
I
then.
mean, we've done it that way in the past as well.
That's up to you guys.
In
if
which
you
case
wanna
we'll be
Push-
doing it the
Do you want to
16th.
push it out to April 2nd?
I'm actually, no, because that's getting under the wire for what we need to do. I'm talking about April 16th, which is 2 weeks before town meeting. Because at that point, we will have seen everybody that we have questions for warrant articles.
So while the warrants are printing, you're saying? that
Well,
we
the
should-
warrant's printing, there's not a whole lot we can
Okay.
do. We can have that meeting, and then we can fine tune how we're gonna address, like last year, I thought it went very smoothly, because we knew what we were going to say to each article. You're going to read them, we're going to do the opinion, we kind of had a dress rehearsal, we can do that on the 16th, when we don't have any
All right, that's
hardcore
fine.
business.
Do you want to move it from the 26th to the 16th of April?
I think if we can, I think
Okay,
that
let's
would
move
be
it out to
better.
the 16th, that's fine.
Okay.
I think that works well for everybody, because it will be finished with what we need to do.
Can I ask a question? Can you,
No.
when you advertise for the special and that, can you do it in the same ad? That'll save us some money.
I guess I can,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather
Then
spend money
two
on,
ads.
rather spend money on two advertising, Larry?
I guess
Sure.
so.
No, we could save money from printing.
Because, quite honestly, I don't think that most people make the distinction between the
They don't.
special and the town meeting. I
It's
mean,
gonna be the
it's,
same night, so if you
the
listen to
same
the
night,
same
right.
ad, you'll save money for the printing.
That's fine.
So I know that we like to meet on Wednesday nights, but if we are going to do a round robin where we have the advice and the discussion, you know, I don't correct each other's advice, if you will. We're gonna have to probably do that on a Saturday. Does that work for everybody?
If I'm not tight somewhere, yeah.
I don't wanna add it on the schedule now, but I can tell you now, on April 5th, I will not be here. Will not be here. So let's have it on, I think we should do it on April 5th, is what I'm saying.
nice try, pal.
Right.
Larry, can we go over what nights we're gonna actually have meetings on Wednesday, starting?
I say we're meeting every Wednesday
Every
from
Wednesday.
now till the next
Every
2
Every
meetings.
Wednesday from here on in,
That's all I
pal.
wanted to know, that's all I wanted to know.
The
Every
only,
Wednesday?
the only meeting, the only Wednesday I don't think we should need to meet is, wow. Well, we can meet on just about anything. We met on Lincoln's birthday, for God's sakes.
We'll take the 23rd off, because April 23rd, I'm sorry.
Week before, yeah, okay.
Let's just plan for every Wednesday, and then if we can adjust accordingly, because I don't want us to take time off and then having to cram everything at the end. You know me, I like to get it done. I still think we're going with the same format, and if anybody disagrees, please let me know. To have one person read the motion.
I think we told Joan and Marilyn they could get you
Yeah.
read this time.
We'll have one person read, unless if Mrs. Catuli wants to give up the reading the.
I have no problem, I have no problem with doing the Monday that we start on the 28th. However, town meeting will most likely go over to Tuesday, so you're gonna need a backup.
Mrs. Fonce and Mrs. Jordan.
All right.
I don't mind backing up.
Well,
I'll do it, I don't care.
No, I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna have you do something else.
Whatever.
You're gonna hold the flag or something. I don't know what it
Do
is.
whatever you want.
Just practice, just
You know, my theory
clear
is,
and concise, that's all.
my theory has been when we go to town meeting, our work is done. We should do as a limited amount as possible while we're on the stage. If there's something to address with something we need to address, then we'll address it. Other than that, the only people talking should probably be the person reading the motion and the person reading the advice and vote. That should be it. And unless somebody disagrees with me, I think that's, we've done our job, we've put our advice out, and unless we have to correct something or if there was misstatement of fact, then we need to get up and do that. Other than that, I don't know that we, I think it went well last town meeting, went faster.
No, I agree with you, everything was good.
So, does anybody have any comments on that?
No, I think it works out really well. The fact that we, even reading our opinion, okay, or understanding our opinion concisely, worked out really well. When I first started on the FinCom, it seemed like every finance committee member had to stand up and give their opinion or why they were for an article or against an article or whatever. The only time we've done that, probably in the last couple of years, is when the FinCom has been really split on a vote. If it's been, one vote that's separated, we've always given our peers on the other side the moment to say why they felt it was that way, especially if it was something that we knew was gonna split the town as well. That makes sense.
Okay.
But every single person standing up, unless it's something you really, really feel strongly as a citizen, then of course, that's your right at town meeting, it's your town meeting to do so. But I think really keeping things along and not adding more opinion where it's unnecessary sometimes, made it work a lot faster.
All right, well, my plan is then I guess I'll have Mrs. Fonts and Mrs. Cattouli read the motions, split it up for the days, and then as far as the advice, I guess you want to retire from reading the advice, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I can get help with it. It's
All right,
just-
and then your backup, anybody want to volunteer? Jeffrey Tufts said something about wanting to read the advice as well?
We may, let's see what we get for warrant articles. We may
Right.
have particular issues that we want to speak to.
And more to your point, if we have one that has a pro and a con, I think we need to split that up as well. Just because you don't want the same voice reading it, because I think it blends in. Just my opinion. Anybody else?
Yep, that's good.
All right. Any more questions on the leading up to town meeting? We'll try to get everybody in that has articles. The Board of Selectmen will probably we will meet with the Board of Selectmen at some point to go over articles. I'm not a fan of that format because, number one, we don't ask the same questions as the Board of Selectmen do. So we go into those meetings, sometimes we come out of those meetings with more questions than we went in with in some cases. So I'm going to have a conversation with their chairman. And I don't know how y'all feel. I understand I don't want people to get their time tied up appearing before the selectmen and then appearing before the finance committee, but I feel like our roles are different and we get more done as a committee than we would in a joint session. And any comments or
I don't
questions?
think that's a good idea, depending on what we're gonna see in the warrant too. I also did, the one time that I attended one of those joint, the Board of Selectmen started voting on articles right there, and I was really uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
It depends on the issues. You might be able to, there might be some non-controversial stuff that you could.
We could do the
On a warrant in
CPC
Wareham?
articles right now. Wow.
Something that's more technical, that has a presentation,
Right.
things like the solar power.
Right, that's good to
with
do
the-
it all
With
at
a lot of
once.
the visuals, that's nice to have all at once.
Okay. Then
But-
we'll
but-
look at the articles and then we'll see. Does that work?
Yeah.
We'll see what we
We'll
can
see what
get
we
done as a
So-
team and
So
then
next week.
that's
Oh, that's
closed
so
and we'll get the
exciting.
warrant. I'm not excited.
I need a
Okay.
life if this is what's exciting me.
Yeah, we'll do that next. Other business. I just want to mention again that there'll be some openings on the finance committee, and therefore we'll need some people to apply. That it's a good opportunity to understand and learn about municipal finance, as well as you get to be part of helping the town with advice. And sometimes people bring donuts. It's awful cool when they do that, or make
I
a
was
dip.
promised brownies tonight.
Okay, that was my
I
mistake.
want margaritas some night.
All right. So
Tonight's okay, Bonnie.
Kelly has something to go over with us real quick here.
Well, I got the DVD from I'm sorry.
You might not want to hear this, Bob.
I got the DVD from the January 29th meeting, and I transcribed it, and it kind of ended before Finance Committee matters. So I'm just wondering if there was anything
The
else.
29th?
The 29th, and
What was your last?
the last discussion was talking about an override. And I'm sorry, I was trying to, a revenue adjustment. And it ended with David Hurd. And that's all, that's
This
it.
is the 29th?
And I know there was a set of minutes that needed to be approved.
Okay, I got it. Discussion of budgets, FY 2015
Oh, I'm
budget with
sorry.
the state
May I
aid.
suggest that you hold any discussion about those minutes until we can find out if your DVD was completely done?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, we'll hold off on that.
Thanks you to the man behind the curtain.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Is that the Wizard of Oz? Any liaison reports? Our next meeting is next week, which is the, help me out here.
19.
19.
Okay, thank you, because I can't turn my head around too well. All right, so we'll meet on the next, anything else anybody wants to add at this meeting, or?
No, I'm good.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 700.
Let's go.